Well, I broke the law for him because I bought him a beer and I took it over.
Hey, if nobody asks, it's
Was
the
the law
bar
broken?
brought the law. The bar broke the law,
They should close that fucking place down. It's irresponsible.
and that's why we're not going to name them. Not because I don't remember.
You don't remember. It was a good bar. Good group of people as well.
Oh, Chinatown is fun. Chinatown's a fun place to hang out when we did that before, baby.
Before, baby. When we had a little meetup.
Yeah.
Little unplanned meetup there in Hawaii.
It's
It was funny because Danny's been saying for ages that he wants to get you on, Nate. He's been like, you got to meet this guy. He's fucking amazing. I've spoke to him on the phone. But Danny says that about everyone.
Yeah, but we first spoke at the conference, right?
Yeah, I ran into you guys just randomly in the hallway.
Yeah, and it's such an interesting topic, though.
Danny says every phone call he's had, they're either amazing or terrible.
Don't say that, because now everyone I spoke to who's not been on the show is going to be like, oh, clearly I was terrible.
Well, I mean, they're going to be thinking that anyway. They didn't get an invite. But he says everyone's amazing, like, and he does. And then sometimes they turn up and I'm like, yeah, they're all right. But then I bump into you at the conference, in Hawaii.
Yeah.
But I didn't make the connection that you were the guy he's going on about because we were going to try and get you into the US. And then when it clicked for me, I was like, oh yeah, no, this guy's fucking amazing. Like, when can we make this show happen? Let's get him on. Let's light the paper and just let him go.
And I'm really glad you took my advice to go to the Big Island. The Big Island is
I wish I'd gone at night.
oh yeah, go Mauna Kea at night on a new moon. So it's the only place in the U.S. and one of the very few places in the world where you can see the Southern Cross and the North Star in the same field of view.
Huh.
Shooting stars. I mean, it is. Yeah, that's why they put the telescopes up there. They have. I mean, our place in the universe is named after Hawaiian mythology because it was discovered in Hawaii. Like, they have all those telescopes. I mean, it's so far from civilization, so far from land. It's way up in the sky. It's the tallest mountain on planet Earth, and it's unobstructed view. 9 months out of the year, no clouds. It rarely ever rains. The only inputs, all the things that live up there are cosmogenic. So they survive on basically stardust. The silver swords just are some of the most amazing plant life on the planet.
Aren't the locals fed up though with the amount of telescopes and things?
Yeah, it's a contentious topic for sure. They want to build a new 30-meter telescope, and it's a very touchy subject.
Yeah. It was interesting to go to Hawaii because Hawaii is one of those places that you hear about as a kid, and you, in your mind, Hawaii is like paradise. It's the perfect place to go there and see it and learn about it. Like even learning about why it's a group of islands. Do you know about this? Why there's a group of islands? Why they're in the line? Like, I'll try because you explained this to me, and I'll see if I get it right. But the reason happens there's like a break in the tectonic plates where the lava can come up. But the Earth is always moving, so those plates are always moving. So it's a bit like, have you ever seen it where they make Krispy Kreme donuts?
Yeah.
Blop, blop. It's like the reverse of that. It's like pushes up, and then everything moves along and pushes up. And that's why they follow a curve, right?
They follow a
How did I
straight
do?
line. Yeah, no, that's really good. It's exactly like a donut machine.
Yeah.
It's a straight line, and then there's a dog leg to the right that takes this, it's called the Emperor Seamount chain. It's the Hawaiian Islands and then the northwestern Hawaiian Islands, and then once they're below the the ocean surface, it's the Hawaiian Emperor Seamount chain, and it travels straight for a couple thousand miles, and then there's just a sharp, almost 90-degree dog leg up to Kamchatka, and that was a result of the Indian subcontinent smashing into the Asian plate, and just reorganizing the direction of the world's tectonics. It's crazy. The Hawaiian Islands are great.
So our plan was to stay on the whole trip on Oahu.
Yeah.
And Nate here said, no, dude, you got to go to the Big Island, and you get the island hopper plane. What you don't know about me is I hate flying. Daddy, what's it like flying with me?
It's embarrassing.
I'm so bad. I'm so bad. Like, where did we fly from?
We went from New York to Nashville, I think it was.
I don't think Daddy was ready for this.
It was like that we took off and the plane like takes a very gentle left turn and Pete's like looking around, panicking. It's ridiculous.
Why are we turning?
Like Greg's like, why can't they just take off and go in a straight line?
Well, that's it. Why can't planes just go, I'm going here to here? Why can't it? Then I understand they have to go around like weather systems, but
Runways are designed, so where the runways are laid are designed based on predominant wind patterns. And so you generally, you don't want to take off or land with a crosswind, right? You ever seen the planes that come in like this?
Knock Airport in Ireland. So when I went go and visit my dad, that is a crosswind. And coming into land at that airport is horrendous. It's horrible. It's kind of like turning into the wind.
Yeah.
I've got a few things about flying. Well, firstly, it doesn't help a young man to become confident about flying when your dad is an aircraft engineer and won't get on a plane. That is, which by the way, I always tell people as we're taking off. that doesn't help. But secondly, there's this whole weird, Stacey Herbert, Max's wife.
Yeah.
So me and her have this whole thing. So whenever I'm basically on a plane and it's like shaking like a fucker and I'm panicking, I end up messaging her and then she goes and checks the weather systems and she reports back and she's like, no, it's fine. There's like a storm coming in. Your pilots are going around it all. And she knows everything. She's like, oh, that region, you're definitely going to have turbulence. There's always turbulence there. So she kind of helps me through it, but no, I'm not a good flyer. My landing here in Austin was awful as well. We circled once coming in.
Oh, really?
And I was like, why are we circling? Like, what's going on here?
Mine was really bad yesterday as well. I wonder if there was some weird weather or something.
Fuck knows, man. I hate it. I hate it. I think I'll get to the point where, like my dad, I'll just never fly again.
Well, how was your island jumper?
Yeah, so that was the point I was getting to. They take off quick.
Yeah.
They take off really quick and they go like basically they steep. It's a steep climb, and then it comes straight back down. It's basically like a very quick roller coaster.
You go up, you get your juice box, you come back down.
Yeah, I didn't like it. I did not like it.
Well, you should next time you should fly Mokulele, and that you'll shit bricks.
But I've done it. I always force myself to do stupid stuff. Like when I flew from Bangkok to Koh Samui, we had the option of going on like a normal plane or one with a propeller, and I took the propeller one because it was going sooner and I wanted to experience it. I also got on a plane from Finland to Latvia once where you boarded it through the back of the plane. Mm-hmm. That was weird. And my seat was near the front. I'm like, well, like if there's a problem here, I'm fucked because I'm at the front and I just don't like
Michael. Michael says he only sits at the back of the plane because statistically something about not dying the most at the back of the plane. But, all of our plane flights are over the middle of the Pacific. So no matter what, if it's going down, we're all going down.
And there's no Wi-Fi on that journey.
Yeah. Except for Hawaiian Pacific Teleport. They actually, some of the flights do have Wi-Fi, and it's through the Hawaiian Pacific Teleport, which of course is located in Hawaii and provides, satellite internet service. And I know this because we need satellite internet service in the middle of the Pacific Ocean.
We're going to get onto that. But no, look, I had a good time in Hawaii. It's a long way for us to go.
Yeah.
And we have to fly over the Caribbean to go there. And it doesn't offer much more than the Caribbean in terms of a holiday. Like if you want to just sit by a beach and relax.
Right.
So it's a long way. I'm glad we've seen it. But like if I had a choice, I'd probably just go to the Caribbean because it's 1 hour.
It's an active vacation. This was, last time I went to the Big Island, I drove 800 miles on that island. Whenever I go there, it's like, let's find a base of operations. And then we're driving 200 miles a day to go, do these hikes, go see these go to the green sand beach.
We saw that.
That's cool. Do you take a Jeep out there?
No, we just, what did we ever rent? Yeah, no, we had a Jeep. Yeah, we had a Jeep.
And you drove that. Yeah, that trail is getting eroded. And there's, a push to make everybody walk the 4 miles in and 4 miles out. But it's crazy. It's green.
Yeah, we went to the Rainbow Waterfall.
Yep.
Which was very cool.
Yeah.
And there's a whole weird thing. Basically, the Rainbow Waterfall is very cool because, Danny, see if you can do a Google search, search for @Peter McCormack, and then rainbow.
Mhm.
See if you can find the tweets I put out. So there's this weird thing, right? When my mum passed away 5 years ago, in Ireland, they bury you within 2 days, right? It's just the way they do it.
Yeah.
So, mum dies, she's taken up to the house, you have a wake at the house, and then you found it. So this is really interesting. So we walk out of my dad's house, we carry my mum into the hearse, we get in the hearse, we turn around the corner and see that rainbow?
Yeah.
That's on the church. Okay. So obviously anyone rationally listening is going to go, yeah, it's a pure coincidence. But hey, what a coincidence
No,
that the morning it's on the church. So the next thing happens, scroll down, Danny. This keeps fucking happening at weird times. Just pause this for a second before you play it. So we decide she wanted to have ashes scattered in the ocean, right? And because my dad won't fly, it's like, where's the furthest we can go in a car? So we decide the south of Spain, but he won't fly. So all the family gets on a plane apart from me and my dad. And I'm like, okay, I'll fucking drive. It was a 25-hour drive. Anyway, we get to the south of France. It's a gloriously hot day. We see this like golden rainbow. Play it now, Danny. And this doesn't even do it justice.
Yeah.
But can you see it? I'd never even seen a golden rainbow before. Didn't even know it was a thing. And that, for about 20 minutes, is just going back and forth across the road as me and Dad are driving. Keep going, Danny. Keep scrolling down. And then, like, on my mum's birthday, my sister went over to Ireland and played golf with my dad, and there's a rainbow. Yeah, look, went to see mum's grave today. Of course, there's a rainbow. It's so weird how it keeps happening, but it's become this thing that's just become important to my family. In that, some people, my friend Louise, who's a hippie, slightly crazy, she'll be like, "No, that's your mum. That's your mum, like in the universe talking to you." And my rational friends will go, "Yes, great coincidence." But what's been really cool about it is, as a family in our WhatsApp group, if anyone sees a rainbow, they put it in there, and we go, "Oh, look, it's mum," and it's just a nice way of keeping mum's memory alive and keep thinking about her. So going to Hawaii, when we saw there was like a rainbow waterfall, it was like, we've got to go and see mum. Anyway, we get there and there's no rainbow. Of course, it's a rainbow. So we sit there watching for ages, and just as we're about to leave, bang, one comes out, and it was just beautiful. So that meant a lot to me.
Yeah. No, it's. I mean, that's a beautiful story. That's what life is keeping the memories of our loved ones alive, and it's beautiful.
What I will say about Hawaii is that I wasn't a fan of Waikiki.
Oh God, no, it's awful.
I thought I was in LA basically.
Yeah, it's terrible. Don't go.
But North Shore was incredible. The kids surfed and loved it. But it reminded me of India in one way. Is that, like, I'm not a spiritual person, but in India and Hawaii, the two places I've really sensed spirituality. Yeah. Like something's going on.
There's something magical there. Yeah, and you can feel it, in the mountains, in the ocean. I mean, it's truly one of the most magical places on Earth. And it's definitely an active vacation.
It is, yeah, it is. You were telling my, what was that story? You were telling my daughter a story about some mythical, I'm going to get this all wrong unless you...
Oh, what was the story?
The guy from the sea or something? Or...
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. So the Hokulea.
Yes.
I was telling a story about the Hokulea. The Hawaiians had discovered open ocean, travel, open ocean navigation 1,000 years before the rest of humanity.
Yeah.
The Vikings and all of us Northern Europeans were still scrounging around in the dirt for, grubs and whatever we could find, while these guys were actively navigating the Pacific Ocean, not just like the North Sea, but the largest ocean on planet Earth. And it's just, that technology got lost over time.
But didn't they populate the islands all the islands near like Australia, like Tonga and Fiji?
The Polynesian Empire is from New Zealand to Hawaii. The Polynesian Triangle is New Zealand to Hawaii to Easter Island. And, there's evidence that they had arrived in North America, 1,000 years before, the Vikings did, or before, Columbus did. And so this, that they had arrived in Hawaii, and Hawaii was kind of sort of towards the end of their expansion. And of course, the Pacific's very, very large and communication's difficult, so things naturally fell off, and they had all the resources they ever needed. And so the technology to do that open ocean navigation got lost generation after generation. I mean, 1,000 years is a long time, and if you're not, navigating the open ocean anymore, they didn't have a written language. And so there was this, there was Thor Heyerdahl. He was a Norwegian or something. I think Norwegian. And he said, oh, the Polynesians weren't that great. They just accidentally, on rafts, accidentally landed. And that's obviously bullshit. These guys, you don't populate the entirety of every, major island in the Pacific Ocean by accident. And so this group...
Michael knows somebody.
Yeah. So Nainoa, Uncle Nainoa is... they sought out to demonstrate, to prove, the Thor Heyerdahl theory was kind of rooted in racism. Like, these guys weren't genius sailors. They were, dumb, lucky people. And that's, kind of a racist view. And so they sought to actually recreate this technology that was lost over thousands of years, 1,000 years. And they did that. They went out and they found somebody who still had that knowledge, way off the grid. So they recreated the type of ship, and probably the greatest watermen they recruited, all the greatest watermen, probably the single greatest was this guy, Eddie Aikau. And,
Is he the surfer?
Yes.
Yeah, I remember.
Yes, the big wave surfer. He, rescued 500 people from the most dangerous break in the world up at Waimea. And, the largest surf competition in the world is named in his honor. And so on their, maiden voyage out there on this Hokulea, they were going to, definitively prove that the Hawaiians were active navigators, so no technology, doing it the old school way. They set out, and, the politics, they were throwing this big party for them because it was a big deal, and the weather was shit. And so they were like, no, we're having this party. We got all the people here. All the sailors were like, let's not go. Let's not go. It doesn't look good. Let's just wait a day. Let's wait 2 days. And they're like, no. The politicians are here. The photo ops. They forced them out. A few hours into the voyage. Bang. There goes their main mast. And so they're floating, and, nobody knows where they are, and they're already. And so Eddie, he just goes for it, man. Grabs his board, jumps in the ocean to paddle back. He never made it, but that next morning they came and rescued him. So, Eddie is a
legend of Hawaii.
Absolute legend. There's a great movie called The Waterman. What's his name? Jason Momoa produced it. And I wanted to watch it me and Michael were working on the plane, but I saw the people ahead. I was like, fuck, I gotta watch this on the way home.
We got to watch that.
It's good.
Yep.
You want to find it?
Yeah.
Is there a trailer?
Probably, but we got copyright infringed last time we did a trailer, so let's not do that again. Yeah.
Wait, what was that then?
Where It Follows, whatever it was. That movie you told us what trailer of.
So we got copyright infringed for promoting a movie.
Correct.
I'm sorry, it's actually about Duke, a different surfer, but still watch it.
Okay. That's really weird because, like, I can understand if we were stealing content, but we're like helping them. Loads of people messaged me after that and said they watched It Follows.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
But I think they like say they own the copyright to that video we published. I think, but I could be wrong. I don't know how it works.
There's a 30 for 30 on Eddie. Yeah, it's a really, really good 30 for 30 episode. The ESPN series about sports stuffs, and there's a whole 30 for 30 on him, and I forget what the name is, but it's like the only 30 for 30 I ever watched.
Well, so I like Hawaii. I want to go back. I want to go and see the other islands at some point. It's more likely something I'll tag onto an LA trip rather than...
right, yeah.
I also want to go to that island where the indigenous people live.
Yeah, you cannot. You got to be invited.
They'll kill you, won't they?
I mean, So there's a lot of good diving that you can do. If you're a scuba diver, you can do off the island. And so I was out there scuba diving, and it's a drift dive, right? You jump in, you sink down, you just kind of float along with the current. Well, one of the divers didn't come up on our dive, and we were supposed to go do another dive. And so I'm a scuba instructor. That's what brought me out to Hawaii in the first place 10, 12 years ago.
Wow.
And so one of the guys didn't come up. And so we, all of the, instructors on the boat and me as an active, insured active instructor, we were like, we need to go do not rescue, but recovery. Turns out the guy had floated around one of the outer islands and then washed up on shore. And they were pissed. I mean, it was a big deal that he had, set foot on the island, and it made the paper.
Is it because they have this active dislike for Americans and Westerners or is it just because they have no exposure to the outside world and anyone who comes in is a threat?
No, they have active exposure, but it was the Robinson family. Is it the Robinson family? They saw what was happening to the indigenous culture, and they wanted to carve out a place where it could stay alive. And
that's cool.
The Hawaiian language at one point was almost extinct, and now it's back. This huge effort to bring this, and now you can do your entire K through graduate school entirely taught in the Hawaiian language.
Nice.
And it's a beautiful language, and it's I'm glad it didn't die off. But they kept the culture. That it was a kind of like the Ireland of Europe, right?
Wow. Yeah. I mean, they're actively trying to encourage the teaching of Irish in Northern Ireland at the moment. It's been an ongoing contentious point. You can start with Wales. I went out to Wales during the COVID lockdowns. It's the only place we could travel to. We couldn't fly, so we booked a caravan in Wales and went out there. And there's certain pubs you go to. Everyone just speaks Welsh, which surprised me, even though it shouldn't. Did you realise that?
Yeah, I used to go to North Wales quite a lot. It's not far, and I think it's a big thing in North Wales. I don't think it's as much in the south, but I might be wrong.
But it's all in North Wales, and they just actively speak the language. You go into the pub, you just can't understand anyone, and that I just wasn't expecting it. So I was like, that's interesting.
The Welsh.
Yeah, it's not even a proper country.
I'm a Scot.
Yeah, are you really?
Yeah.
So I'm Irish.
We're from Skye. I have family on Skye, MacNichol, active clan structure. My uncle is the North American chief of Clan MacNichol, and we have a.
You've got the look now.
Yeah, you can see the Scottish, the red in the beard.
Yeah.
We've got the Castle Balvenie is our family. It's ruins, right? You can't. Nobody lives there.
Yeah.
You can stop, you can get a ticket, go take a tour. It's all ruins. You park at the Glenfiddich Distillery.
Did you go there, Jeremy, on your trip?
No, Talisker is way more interesting than Skye.
Oh, no, yeah. So the castle is in Speyside. But yes, on Skye, we have Scorrybrack is the name of the ancestral home. But we were, Skye was one of the first for the clearances.
Right.
So we got kicked off of Skye, right after the Jacobites, the failed Jacobite rebellion.
Right. Well, so in Ireland, it's my exposure of having gone a lot because my dad lives there. It's spoken less, but when I went to Galway, we took a plane out to the Isle of Arran, another little horrible little plane, horrible. And there they do speak Irish, but there's not many people there. But they are actively trying to encourage the language to be spoken. But obviously in Northern Ireland, where you have the Unionists and the Republicans, and they don't agree, and it's a contentious point because the Irish want Irish to be taught in the schools, and the Unionists don't want it. So that is a problem that they're trying to solve. Yeah. I mean, I think it should be taught, and I think it should be optional.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to take second languages. What better language than your own?
Wow. Some people say it's not our own. Our own is the King's English, but here's what it is. Okay, so you've been there, what, 10 to 12 years now?
Something like that.
So what kind of experience have you had living there with kind of understanding climate change? Has it affected Hawaii
Yeah.
in a provable way to explain it to save some doubters?
Well, before I came to Hawaii, I was a scuba instructor in the Florida Keys, where I experienced my first coral bleaching event, and that broke my fucking heart. And then when I moved to Hawaii, I saw a lot of the same sort of stuff. I mean, direct as a scuba instructor, I take these people out to the reefs, and then they just kick all over the coral, knock it over, kick sand all over it, which kills the coral. Coral is an animal. And it's not a rock, it's an animal, and that animal, it lives symbiotically with a phytoplankton, zooxanthellae, that lives inside of it, and the waste products of this plant that lives inside of it feeds on. And so the main source of its food is the plant, and the plant's main source of food is the sun. So when you kick sand all over it, it kills the coral, right? So,
Right.
the coral reefs right off of Waikiki have been heavily degraded, year over year, and taking people there day after day, looking back at the pictures, you just see how year after year, it gets worse and worse and worse.
But that sounds like a tourism problem, not
Yeah,
a climate
that's
change problem.
So the other, my wife does study. She got a paper published about the, what's with sea level rise, what's going to, where that's going to affect things. She studies specifically wetlands, and over the years, of course, the wetlands have been vastly, have decreased in size. The largest wetland in Hawaii is still right behind our house, and it keeps us protected from floods. But if those go, of course, flooding, Waikiki and that whole, area used to be a giant swamp. And, Waikiki means springing water. And, so by putting people there, now it floods a lot, and Waikiki will be underwater. I mean, you already, when I lived in Waikiki, and Michael still lives in Waikiki, after, on a king tide, you'll see the tide come up on the other side of Waikiki, out of the sewers. And I think it's about 20 years they're not building new hotels there specifically because, the payback period for one of these hotels in Waikiki is around 20 years. So if Waikiki is not going to be a suitable location for hotels in 20 years, there's no reason to put up anymore. So the last round of hotels are being built there.
Hawaii is definitely experiencing rises in sea levels because this is something that came up in my discussion with Alex Epstein. And he has various, and if I misquote him from that interview, I apologize. And please do go back and check the interview and what's actually said. And you can try and help me here, Danny, but there was a couple of things. One of the things he referred to is that, we must learn to adapt. Not too many people live on the coast. I mean, yes, that's fine if you're in the US, but
only 40% of all people live on the coast. Not too many.
But but also he explained that in some places that there's sea levels are dropping. Mm-hmm. So we got into that.
So that's a low. If he said sea levels are dropping, that's bullshit. The only places sea levels are dropping are places like Alaska.
Yeah, that's what came up, didn't it?
I'm pretty sure that's right.
The reason is glacial rebound. So glaciers weigh a lot, enough to where they can increase the, if they're sitting on a piece of land, it's a lot of extra weight. So they cause, a lot of glaciers cause that land to sink down lower because, of course, the mantle is a liquid rock, and so things float on. We float on top. We're this scum at the top of this big, molten mantle, and so big glacier causes that land to sink down. As those glaciers melt, that land springs back up.
Huh.
And so it's called glacial rebound. And in fact, actually, even in Hawaii, not all the land is some of the land is rising. So, you just mentioned the donut maker earlier. Well, when the these islands are formed, they're big and hot, and so they're kind of hot rock is more voluminous, so it has a larger volume, and it kind of sinks down, and that pushes up. So Maui is actually coming out a little bit, right? Has whereas the big island is pushing down, which has this rebound effect on Maui. And so by saying, some places are actually rising, it's a lack of education on how the plate tectonics work. It seems like just a basic, I don't want to call out Alex on it, but it seems like a basic understanding of plate tectonics.
Well, look, the thing about Alex is that he has been welcomed in by many people in the Bitcoin community, and I think he has shifted some of my thinking as well with regards to, he talks about the rapid, he's essentially against the rapid reduction in fossil fuels, and I understand why. And you can see now in Europe the issues we're having with our energy crisis, that he makes a very valid point with regards to that. He makes valid points with regards to.
I wouldn't call out Europe as the paragon of renewable energy when it's the geopolitical struggle over oil right now is causing it's an oil problem, or natural gas. But
what I mean is he's pointed out the effects, the impact of not having energy. Yeah. And I think if you're going to transition, you transition right into the right technologies. And I think there's kind of, I don't know what your view on nuclear, but most people agree that the decommission of nuclear plants was wrong.
Pretty dumb.
Yeah, pretty dumb. And that's where we should be focusing technology. But
we do have, with nuclear, I'm a fan of nuclear. There's not enough fissile material. Right now with our current nuclear production, we only have about 80 years worth of fissile material available. Now, there's ways to extend that from, pulling it out of seawater, but that is a much more expensive technology. And again, using our current production of nuclear energy, that only extends that life for 35 years. So every new nuclear plant we build that 80 years of current, technology gets smaller and smaller and smaller. And so some people...
This. Can you look that up?
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did not know that. So...
And you have the same problem with solar panels too. People don't understand, on the other side, solar panels have this big problem where are you going to get the solar panels and battery? Where are you going to get the lithium? Where are you going to get the cobalt? Where are you going to get the manganese, the copper, the nickel? These things exist in finite, quantities on land, and
it's going to be a problem for Tesla.
Yeah. Especially the cobalt. People who say, "Oh, we can just batteries and solar." The cobalt is all sourced from the Congo, and these artisanal mines are the fancy business. Yeah.
So this says roughly 230 year supply
at the current consumption rate.
Scientific American is not the best source, but yeah.
Okay. But there is the point is all of these sources of energy are finite.
They're finite.
Whether it's oil, natural gas. It's not going to affect our lifetime. But okay, because this obviously is a hot topic in the Bitcoin world at the moment.
Yeah.
Not only energy and climate change separately and as and at the same time being discussed together. But energy and energy sources. Mm-hmm. But also there is a growing a group of, I would say, people from the left joining Bitcoin who are more actively discussing issues with climate change. I don't know your political position. I don't even care. But what I do know is you're a Bitcoiner and you're exposed to the Bitcoin community. What's your current take on the debate and the debates being having? The reason I ask is I've brought up a couple of things here and you've instantly had solid answers. So you see it all. What's your kind of interpretation? What's been got wrong? What's been got right?
I have a master's in. My background is I have a master's in marine geology and geochemistry. So I'm a climatologist. I don't call myself a climatologist. I'm an oceanographer. or limnologist or isotope geochemist, depending on what the topic is. I mean, all my different specializations have different names that you can, different hats that you put on for different situations. The fossil fuel maxis which is always so weird. It's the petrodollar. How can you be a fossil fuel maxi? The thing that props up the US dollar. It's just such a hypocritical thing to hold up as the end all be all of energy. The thing that props up the US dollar. You can't be a Bitcoin maximalist, no fiat, no CBDCs, when the thing that props them up you're simping for. So, but
Well, I mean, look.
I know. That's not a good argument.
Well, no, I get your point. But I think it really comes from a point of political polarization.
Yeah.
Like, we don't have in the UK polarization with regards to climate change around politics. Whether you're on the left or the right, you understand there is an issue with climate change, and that's something that hopefully will get dealt with. Policy or or technologies that can be used. Yes, there's plenty of areas for debate, but it isn't. Everyone's on this. You say everyone's on the same page.
Pretty much.
Is it the same in Australia?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think actually less than the UK. It's probably somewhere between the two.
But at the same time,
Rupert Murdoch has a large outlet in Australia.
He's got a large outlet in the UK.
Everywhere.
I would say we have a growing problem of climate change activists or policymakers making poor decisions or doing things which is turning people against supporting what they're doing. But you've got exposure to it all. What are we getting right? What are we getting wrong? Where's your position on all this?
Well, I'm a climate scientist, and the position of the scientific community is unanimous, and that is happening. And that's the thing about science is we go out and we look for evidence. Scientists don't tell anybody what they need to do. We go out and we gather the data and say, this is what's happening. Now you make that decision yourselves. And so, politicians are going to politic, right?
Yeah.
Activists don't have, if you don't have a scientific background, which most of the people on the anti-climate change side just don't understand how basic science is done. I mean, I've been to Mauna Loa, where the Keeling curve was discovered. Where the CO2 emissions, that graph where the CO2 emissions. We've been taking the same measurements there for 50 years. I've been to Station Aloha, which is, this region in the middle of the ocean, 100 kilometers northeast of Oahu. And we've been going there month after month on research cruises for the last 30 years, taking the same exact measurements and watching the change. There's no room for fiat to come in there and put their
dirty fiat fingers.
The dirty fiat fingers, the fiat fuels. Like, do you mean you mean petroleum? sorry, I've been reading too much of this book that I don't want to talk too much about.
Well, now I want to know what book.
Is it not clear to you after that?
Is it Fossil Future?
No, it's Safe. It's Safe's book.
Which one?
He has a chapter called in the Fiat Standard called Fiat Fuels.
I haven't read the Fiat Standard. I read the Bitcoin Standard. Has some good bits and
some good bits. Yeah,
absolute bullshit.
I look at it as like a parable. It tells a good story, and the moral is there it is.
Okay,
Mauna Loa Observatory.
We'll come back to Safe's book.
The Keeling curve. This is
what is this? Explain to the people listening who can't see the chart.
That's the carbon dioxide concentration from the second highest mountain on planet Earth. So far removed that there is no human impact on that. It's so high up that there's no, crosswinds coming from, LA that are diluting it. This is the heartbeat of the atmosphere, and the Station Aloha Observatory is the heartbeat of the ocean.
And that, so from 1960 to 2015, so in 55 years, it's gone up about 30% in a pretty straight-ish line. It seems to be just slightly
you can see the jagged line.
Yeah.
That's the difference between the, summer and the winter. There's a lot more land. in the northern hemisphere, right? You look at a map, all the land is in the northern hemisphere. And so, when we burn a lot of, fossil fuels in the wintertime for warmth,
Right.
higher. And then when when it shifts to summer, it goes back down because the southern hemisphere uses a lot less. It's a lot
And I'm assuming there's other people doing these readings all around the world.
all around the world, and they all say that. And it's not just these this is just CO2. This is just like, this is kindergarten shit. You take people up there, and kindergartners do this on field trips, right? People make a pilgrimage up there, like, high school students, middle school students, they can all make this measurement. The real measurements are actually the delta 13C, the isotopes. And that's really, this is like, that's just straight carbon dioxide, but it's the isotopes, the isotopic record that really has that fingerprint of humanity, because, not all carbon is the same. There's different flavors. Carbon 12 is the one we know the best. It weighs 12, right? All carbon has, 6 protons. The amount of neutrons is kind of arbitrary, right? Not all, isotopes are stable, but of the stable isotopes, carbon 12 and carbon 13 are the most important. 13 obviously has, 6 protons, but 7 neutrons. So it weighs a little more. And it turns out that life, things that are living, that makes a big difference, right? The energy required to form bonds with carbon is proportional to the weight. Imagine walking around with a backpack, an empty backpack, your carbon 12, and then sticking a bunch of bricks in your backpack. That's carbon 13. Which one are you going to prefer? If it's between you and Danny, who gets to wear which backpack and have to walk around for the rest of your life?
To be honest, Danny's been carrying me for a long time.
So he's carrying you and the backpack.
Yeah, so I probably owe Danny one.
Carbon 25.
And so, fossil fuels come from, living matter, right? I remember, I was listening to one of the interviews that was Safe and Alex, and they were talking shit about wetlands and swamps. And it's like filthy swamps. Like, where do you think fucking coal comes from? You dingleberry? Like, where does coal come from? It comes from swamps. Like, 300 million years ago, but fucking swamps. And so, those plants that lived in the swamps, disproportionately uptake that lighter carbon over the heavier that carbon 13. And so they took up that extra carbon, and then when they got buried, they took it with them. And so that changed the isotopic content of the CO2 in the atmosphere, and we can measure that. And so now what we're seeing is, that isotopic content, that delta C13 ratio, shift down because we're putting that that lighter carbon back into the atmosphere, and that's the fingerprint. It is unambiguous. It is humans putting that in. It's not rocks, because rocks don't give a shit, right? Rock don't care. Rock do what rock do. Geology is, geology. There's not much art in geology. This is a rock. It's going to do the thing that a rock does. Life is weird.
All right, so we're definitely increasing the carbon in the atmosphere.
Yes.
That is unambiguous.
Yes.
And you can't debate that. But does having more carbon in the atmosphere definitely change the temperature?
Yes.
Tell me how. Like, I'm being the doubter here. Like, I believe you.
So carbon dioxide, right? 1 carbon, 2 oxygens, right? This is it's a linear molecule because there's a double bond. How deep do we want to go into the science?
Have you got to go anywhere? We should have got a bottle of whiskey.
There you go.
That's what we should have done.
I can go right now. 3 blocks away.
You can go. We'll carry on.
Scotch.
No, fuck that shit. I'm a bourbon guy. I can't drink scotch.
If they have Talisker.
Exactly. Notes of red pepper.
All right, let's get some whiskey on. Let's go.
But no, so carbon dioxide's a linear molecule.
Do you know why I care? It's because, like, I don't retain knowledge well. I'm more creative, right? My entire career has been creative, storytelling or getting people to tell stories. This is why I can never remember what the fucking X-Pub is, because I can read it, I just don't retain the knowledge. And I'm always reading about climate change and seeing, and trying to understand it and reading the scientific papers, but I don't retain it. But I'll have someone like Alex on my show, and I just don't have the ability to debate him correctly.
Right.
But I do want to give him the time. So therefore, hearing from you and having you explain it, I mean, I should just get you to sit down with him and have a conversation.
Well, I'm supposed to debate someone. They're not. They're being little weasels.
He's safe it in.
Yeah.
We'll get to safe. Oh God. We'll talk about safe in a bit.
So carbon dioxide is a linear molecule, because there's that double bond between both, the carbon and the two oxygens, right? And so there's different modes of freedom, and it can wiggle, right? So when you and it likes to wiggle at a very specific frequency. Think like a guitar string, right? You tighten the guitar string, and it makes the same, the D or the G or the A, and it's based on the wiggle. So different bonds have different wiggles, and they like to wiggle at that one frequency, right? So when something strikes it with that same frequency that it likes, it responds, right? And in general, the one that really matters is the twisting and the bending. There's symmetrical and asymmetrical, but those aren't necessarily super important. But though the major one happens to wiggle in the IR frequency, infrared radiation frequency. And so what a lot of people don't understand is that the heat that we feel here at Earth on the surface is not directly from the sun. It's actually, the sun strikes the Earth, and black body radiation says that, that the Earth will then re-radiate that energy that it's given. So, the sun is very hot, so it has the frequency of the energy comes off of it is a lot shorter wavelength, and when it strikes the Earth is much cooler than the sun, so it has a longer wavelength in the IR spectrum. It turns out that that wiggle in the CO2 and of course in methane and all the other greenhouse gases, right? They all take up, they all like that general, they all absorb energy really well in that range that the Earth puts out. And so, as the Earth radiates the energy from the sun back up, well, the carbon dioxide absorbs that energy, which is supposed, going straight up, right? If it was, if that carbon dioxide wasn't there, that energy would just fly straight up, right?
Right.
Because the sun hits the Earth and the Earth radiates in a, circular, away from the circle.
So we're just retaining the heat.
And now that's a good thing too, because if that carbon dioxide wasn't there, it'd be like minus 19 degrees Celsius all day long.
So we need some. We need a balance.
Yeah. And so it's about how much. And, what it does is it just keeps filling up. It keeps where that carbon dioxide is, it slows that energy transfer down because the Earth has to radiate the same amount of energy it takes up. It has to re-radiate that to space. Otherwise, of course, we'll boil. And so what more carbon dioxide does is it slows that transfer of energy down. And we can, of course, record this from space by looking, just taking a spectrometer, saying, hey, this is what the sun's putting out. Hey, this is what the Earth is putting out. Turns out we're about 5%. We should be, in order to get that, kind of static where we're putting out as much as we're taking in, we're about 5% lower than that. And so that's where the energy, and it keeps going up and up and up and up. And that means there's more heat here. We're just retaining more heat.
Which means polar ice caps melt.
And not just, that's only one component of sea level rise.
Mm-hmm.
So, the density of water is dependent on its temperature and salinity. So
when it's warmer, it expands.
It's warm, it expands. So the polar ice caps, if they all melt, it's like 30 feet of sea level rise. If at that same temperature where they all melt, well, the
water's expanding,
yeah, it's 300 feet. And what's cool about living in Hawaii is we see this all the time. We can, there's a number of hikes that you can do where you can just look up 300 feet and go, oh, that's a bunch of fucking coral in the air. Huh. Because the sea level was hundreds of, and that would be devastating to all life. It's like we were, talking about before with the Mississippi, right? If the Mississippi River was allowed to shift, that would just completely fuck over our inland transportation network, using the rivers, the navigable rivers of the U.S. Well, a 300-foot higher sea level would devastate our ability.
300 or 30?
With thermal expansion of the ocean, we're talking 300.
Hold on.
So
how much habitable Earth is left after that point?
a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, it would push in. I mean, obviously, Florida's gone.
Yeah.
Yeah, Florida. Who needs it? I lived in Florida for a while. I like it. I lived in the Keys. I like it. I'm not going to talk too much shit about Florida.
But we will lose a number of nations.
Yep.
Okay. And
Low-lying Pacific nations, which are a big deal.
yeah. Okay, so that is one. But there's numerous issues with climate change that come. So when you see this discussed within the Bitcoin community, I'm no good as somebody to debate this. I don't have the expertise, but I feel like we are sometimes shooting ourselves in the foot with trying to expand Bitcoin into other communities when we get this so fundamentally wrong. And you're saying we're getting it fundamentally wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what should be done though? Because okay, you flew over here, you got on a plane, you're in a car, yada yada, and I'm the same. I'm a complete hypocrite. What should and can be done? Like, what is the conversations within the circles you're within? Because it's very clear that there are issues with solar and wind. Yes, they can support and add to the mix, right? But there's clear issues.
Yeah,
there has been an issue with the green lobby essentially destroying the nuclear industry, but also you said that's finite. So like,
oh, don't get me started. I'm not a fan of the Sierra Club. Not a fan of Greenpeace. I mean, these guys are all on the take.
So what can be done? Like, what should be done? What?
That's the question we need to ask ourselves as the human race. What should we do? Because if doing nothing leads to billions of death, and doing something leads to a billion deaths, what is the right answer there?
A claim of a billion deaths is something somebody would jump on you for and say, hold on a second. What evidence do you have that this will lead to a billion deaths? We've had lots of claims before in the past that haven't come true.
Yeah.
And that's an issue. So are you just saying that as a pass away comment, or do you actually believe that will happen? Because
you have to define the timeline, right? So what is the timeline for those deaths? Now that's something I'm not going to,
what causes those deaths? Because if climate change
breakdown in supply lines, food production, water, just straight up flooding, what happens when a billion people at the coasts need to migrate? Where do they go? How does that affect your nation? I mean, I know in the U.S., there's a huge anti-immigration. Well, what happens when there's a billion people knocking on the doors? I mean, at least China built all the ghost cities that they could put people in. You look at the distribution of land on planet Earth, it's all in the northern hemisphere. And so if the vast stretches of the equator become uninhabitable, where do those 40% of all people live in the tropics? 40% of all humanity lives in the tropics. And if we start fucking with the water cycle, and if we start fucking with where they live and their land gets flooded, where do they go? And the only answer is they go north.
Okay, so the big question is, what can we do? But like, have you?
What should
we do? And have you thought about this deeply? Have you discussed this?
Yeah, I mean, that's why I started OceanBit with my partner Michael.
Yeah.
I looked at this I started small. I started looking at it from, okay, well, Hawaii, we have this, law that says we have to reach 100% renewable energy by 2045. And so I started looking at, well, how do we actually do that? Because Hawaii is a very unique place. Unlike, many other places, we don't have the land. So, I looked at what it would look like to replace just a single, the Kahe power plant over on the west side. There's like Electric Beach. There's some reefs there. There's a big power plant there. Has about 600 megawatt capacity.
How's it generating?
Fossil fuels.
Okay.
Petroleum.
I've been snorkeling there, and you can go out to the vent, and it's like super hot water comes out, and all the fish hang around it.
And you can swim into the vent, and it'll push you. It'll shoot you right back out. It's a lot of fun. Michael was there the other day snorkeling. No, it's a great snorkel scuba spot around there too. It's fun.
That reminds me of that place I went to in Oahu. Is it the Spitting Cave?
The Spitting Cave.
Yeah. It's incredible. Let me show you the videos afterwards.
Yeah.
Did you hear about this? It says the Spitting Caves. You go up there, you're like, what the hell is this on about? And somehow the way the coastline is eroded, there's this kind of like cave that's
It's like a blowhole kind of thing.
yeah, and so the water shoots it and it just flies out. It's like incredible. I mean, I don't see anything like that in Bedford. So to me, it was amazing. We don't have much in Bedford.
But I looked at, I did this analysis for the state of Hawaii. How we can actually achieve that, and just replacing that one, what it would look like to replace just that single 600 megawatt petroleum power plant. And so I looked at, of course, solar. Well, the problem with solar is that we don't have the land for solar, unlike other places that can just willy-nilly bulldoze, pavement up a big stretch of land to do that. Our land is sacred.
Yeah.
You can't just do that. We don't have the vast stretches of land for that giant solar. It turns out you would need a solar plant that's 4 times the size of the international airport, which it's a big airport. You need find 4 of those somewhere, and then about $1 billion worth of batteries. I think all told is $5 or $6 billion to do that. So that's a no. There's no land for the solar anyway. Then you look at wind, right? Well, we have a hard enough time putting up new windmills anyway. Again, it's the land thing, and our migratory birds, right? And so you have to start looking offshore. And turns out you would need a offshore wind farm the size of Oahu just to replace the one power plant. Nuclear, as great as nuclear is, we don't have siting for it. There's no evacuate. Where are you going to go? If there's a Fukushima, where are you going to go?
Yeah.
You're going to crowd on the other side of the island? Well, then the nuclear fallout's just going to come kill you there.
Do you have weather events that seem kind of like flash floods from the sea, like tsunami type events?
Tsunamis,
Yeah.
sure, are a thing. Flash floods everywhere.
Because that's the problem with Fukushima. It's too close to the coast, right?
They have to be. They need
Yeah.
a lot of water needs, right? It takes a lot of water to cool those things down. And so you have to be next to a giant body of water.
Right.
So you have to be, siting on the coast. It has to be a certain distance away from a population center. And we're on an island. You can't put a nuclear.
Okay.
Yeah. We don't have any rivers for hydro, and pumped hydro is something that they're doing on the island of Kauai. And the question is, which mountaintop do we remove on Oahu? And good luck getting that through public review and public comment. And so that's and the geothermal that we have is on the Big Island, and people are not happy about that anyway. Already they're not happy about the only one that's over there. And then you have, not only is Hawaii its own grid, each island is its own separate grid. And so they're not connected. Maui and Oahu and the Big Island are all separate grids. So, you'd have to build this long-ass cable between the Big Island and Hawaii and Oahu, and the people would just, the indigenous community would not be very happy about siphoning the resources of the Big Island to support Waikiki. or there's a lot of animosity between, especially against Oahu. And so the one thing that stood out in all of these renewable portfolio standard reports is there was always this footnote that this technology, ocean thermal energy conversion, could theoretically provide much, much greater than 100% of all of Oahu's needs, and it requires no, land footprint at all, and it's been around for 100 years.
What is it?
The Balvenie. Oh, wow. Yes.
What do you got there as well?
Texas beer for Dan.
I'm gonna have a beer.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna say I don't like Scotch whiskey.
You don't like Scotch?
No, I don't. I'm a bourbon.
But these are made with bourbon casks, so you don't get the harshness of the tannins of the wood.
Right, I'll have a little bit. Then I maybe have a bit. I wasn't going to drink today. This is Danny's fault.
You're the one that sent Jeremy out.
Still Danny's fault. Even though it was my idea and I sent Jeremy and I'm going to have them.
But yeah, it's, there was this OTEC thing stood out. And of course, as a marine geologist and geochemist, I love that bottle.
That is pretty. What is this OTEC technology? Explain to me how it works.
So it's a heat engine. You use the difference in temperature between warm surface water in the tropics and deep cold water, about 800 to 1,000 meters below the surface of the ocean. And you can run a heat engine off of that. You have a working fluid, in our case, ammonia, and an ammonia and water mix. It's a binary fluid.
Thank
Cheers.
you. To the Celts.
Aloha.
Aloha.
Oh, that's the good shit. My uncle's official title is
bad,
the
actually.
Baron of Balvenie.
Do you know the ones I don't like the peaty? You know the peaty tasted ones?
Oh, those are the best.
Oh, I think they're gross.
Those are the best. I like my whiskey to taste like a candy store that was lit on fire. Like that's the flavor that I go for.
I think it tastes like a foot.
An ashtray.
You ever had one?
Yeah, I fucking hate it.
Yeah, I hate it. Somebody bought me a really expensive one once, and then they wanted to drink it with me, and I didn't want to say I didn't like it, so I just had to keep drinking it. It's gross. Okay, so
That got a bit distracting there. Can we kind of start again with some of that?
Sure.
we're so unprofessional. Again, it's your fault. You're the producer.
But can you just start again with like what this technology is and what it does?
So ocean thermal energy conversion is just another method. It's kind of like geothermal, which uses the thermal energy of the earth. This is ocean thermal. It uses the thermal energy of the ocean. So at the tropics, the sun, is dead on, right? Striking it all day, every day. It warms up the water at the surface. And the natural flow of deep water is such that it's, at about 800 to 1,000 meters below the surface, it's freezing cold, 4 degrees Celsius. And so you can, anytime you have a difference in temperature, you can extract energy from that. You have a warm source, a source of heat, and a sink for that energy, for that heat.
But how? How does it?
So it's a Rankine cycle. You use a working fluid. In our case, we use a binary fluid of a combination of water and ammonia. And so, ammonia boils with the warm surface water. And then as it boils, it turns into a gas and vapor and flows through a turbine. And then you use that freezing cold water to condense it back to a liquid. And just run it. Big old loop.
Okay.
It's the original engine. It's the engine technology's been around since the beginning, and this OTEC is 141 years old.
So why is it not being used?
So the first plant was built in the 1930s in Cuba, and the 1930s was not a great time for renewable energy. The discovery of oil in the Middle East kind of put the kibosh on a lot of renewable energy projects. So it was kind of shelved for a while. And then, Hawaii came back. We have this list of all the different plants that there have been about 14 different plants built over the last 100 years. The first one in Cuba, and then there've been 3 or 4 built in Hawaii, but they've all been on the small research end. And this tech, it's the most basic it's plumbing. It's not rocket science. It's not like nuclear energy. It's just a series of tubes. It's literally just a series of tubes.
But you got to go out into the ocean and do it.
So it can be done on land. There's two options: a land-based, but once you start getting into the large scale, it really makes the most sense to do this on the ocean on a platform, an offshore platform.
So it's a floating plant.
It's a floating plant ship. So if I say plant, I'm referring to a plant ship rather than what you think of on land as a plant.
And why can that generate so much energy?
The ocean is very big, and that's a lot of surface area for, it's a solar powered.
So you have to build, so the size of the plant will reflect how much energy you want to extract. Right.
It's proportional to how much water you take up. So, think of a 100 megawatt plant, which could power 100,000, 150,000 homes, is going to be about the size of, since we're all everybody after the Panama Canal disaster, we're all familiar with ship sizes now. It's about that size. That 100 megawatt is about the size of the ship that crashed in the Panama Canal.
And then, so how do you get that energy?
The Suez Canal.
Yes. How do you get that energy from there to land?
So for the last 100 years, there have been sort of 2 ways that have been thought of to do this. There is the direct cable connection, right? High voltage cable. Something like this in Hawaii would be about 10 kilometers off the coast. So you have a 10-kilometer long cable. The other option is a grazing option, where it's with a connected plant, you have to have a mooring to keep it in place, right? You can't have it floating around because it doesn't really need to touch the bottom of the ocean, right? It's basically just a big straw to 1,000 foot. It's a big straw. It's a 30-foot diameter straw. It's a big fucking straw, but it's a straw nonetheless. So you have the connected version with a mooring, and then the grazing option is just a free-floating platform that you use to, it's called Lockheed coined the term energy carrier plant, where they would produce, ammonia on board or, hydrogen that could be transported anywhere, right? So you do this in the middle of the ocean. You're cutting CapEx. You don't need the mooring, which deep water moorings take forever to get. That cable is expensive. And you have all this extra overhead of being on land and being close to land. So the grazing option is cheaper.
I still don't understand it. So you generate the energy.
Yep.
Are you storing it and then sailing it back to the
So in the grazing option, or not the grazing, in the energy carrier, you use that energy to generate green, hydrogen fuel, and then you convert that to ammonia by the Haber-Bosch process. And then you take that, then a ship comes by, takes that ammonia to wherever it's needed, and then you can use that as fuel somewhere else.
And what fuel do you use that? Can you use that to generate
energy? Yeah.
Energy. How do you use ammonia to generate energy?
Well, you turn it back to hydrogen.
And then how do you turn hydrogen to energy?
Fuel cell, the hydrogen cars. That's one of the big pushes.
But how advanced is the hydrogen tech fuel cells to generate?
Not very.
Yeah. So
this was theoretical.
Okay.
This was purely theoretical at the time.
I'm going to ask something, but I think I know the answer. Is the answer to this in Bitcoin? Because it goes back to Saylor's point. So if you go out there, if you take a bunch of ASICs, you can mine Bitcoin.
Yep.
You can send that Bitcoin.
Transport it back to land. Well,
you don't have to transport it.
You don't have to. It's already there, right? You
Yeah.
just stick the address, the address in the block.
And then how do you convert that Bitcoin into then energy?
Oh, you don't.
You don't.
You convert it into financial capital.
Right.
And so the problem...
But that doesn't solve the energy. This is great for Bitcoin mining, but it doesn't solve the need for renewable energy.
So the problem with OTEC is not it's not a technological problem. It's very simple. Again, it's not rocket science. It's plumbing.
Yeah.
And the problem is not, at scale, 100 megawatt, 400 megawatt plant sizes. Those are connected to land because the cable and the mooring make up a very small portion of the budget. The problem is that all of the research that's been done and all the plants that have been built are on the small scale. And so scaling this technology from 100 kilowatts, which is the size of the plant built on this last plant built on the Big Island of Hawaii, to 400 megawatts, you can't go straight. You need to build somewhere in the middle, right? You need to build a pilot plant that's, of sufficient scale to prove that it works at large scale.
Okay, I get it.
And so the problem with this 10 megawatt plant has been, well, if you hook it up to land, that cable, that mooring make up an outsized portion of the budget. And so what happens is once you start adding that cable in and the mooring and the 10 years worth of cost, you end up with a LCOE, cost of energy, being around 50 cents per kilowatt hour. And we pay in Hawaii 44 cents per kilowatt hour. And so even at our current cost of energy, that's still too high, especially for something that you would need to pay for 30 years. Now, with the grazing option, you cut all this CapEx, you can stand it up faster, but before Bitcoin, there was never a way to make money in the middle of the ocean. These 10 megawatt size isn't necessarily for the energy, it's more for the technology. And
I get it. Ding, ding, ding. You take a bunch of miners out there, a bunch of ASICs.
Yep.
And that is going to reduce the cost for you to build your proof of concept. And once you've built the proof of concept, you can
expand the races.
Yeah.
The 10 megawatt plant size only needs to generate a single kilowatt hour of energy. That's it.
How many of these plants would you need to power all of Hawaii, all the islands?
It would end up being about 6.
6 would power all the islands.
Oahu is about 6. You add in another one per island because the other islands generally. So on Oahu, we take it's about 2,000 megawatts of energy, and then the other islands have about 200 megawatts each.
So where are you at with this? When you actually have you started construction?
So our plan right now is to take over the 100 megawatt. Our partners are Mackay Ocean Engineering, who built and constructed that 100 kilowatt plant on the Big Island. So we need to. And so what's nice about Bitcoin and OTEC is that it's not just the energy part, right? That's kind of been the MO of Bitcoin miners for the last, you take the miners, you put them in a container, you co-locate that container next to an energy source. Well, our plan isn't to just co-locate these things next to, it's to actually integrate those Bitcoin miners into the energy generation process in a full cycle integration, or something I call the Harmon cycle. And it's, because it's that delta T of the OTEC cycle is so low, right? You can get in the water. It happens to have a lot of overlap with the heat output of these Bitcoin miners. So what you can do in this full cycle integration, you can generate the energy with the OTEC cycle, put that energy into the Bitcoin miners, reuse that heat to stick back into the OTEC cycle to improve its efficiency, and then you can cool the work. It has to be done with an immersion fluid, and then you can subcool the immersion fluid with an infinite supply of freezing cold water. So you get the cold, you get the cooling for free, and the energy, and it, including Bitcoin, makes it more efficient.
Yeah.
You can't do it any other way.
It's fucking genius.
And that's why Mackay partnered with us. Richard?
Okay, so where are you at though? What can you tell us about where you're at? From you're at concept. At what point will you be? How far away are you from actually mining Bitcoin in the ocean.
So we have to. Nobody's ever built Bitcoin into an energy cycle. So we have to prove that out. First things first. So the plant on the Big Island was built actually to test the heat exchangers for F-35s. You know, the new Navy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the new military aircrafts. They're pretty awesome. It was built to test the heat exchangers that went into them. Mackay built those heat exchangers. And so it's this testing facility. So we want to test this out to actually constrain those numbers to a reasonable point. And that's the stage we're at. We're refurbishing it. It's been mothballed since the F-35 was finalized. So we have to, it needs some new parts. It hasn't been run in a while. It needs a new turbine. So we're getting some new parts. And we're going to refurbish that starting next year around, what is it, summer?
Yeah, summer.
Around summer, we'll have the refurbish all done. And we're going to actually demonstrate the heat reuse, the Harmon cycle, the efficiency. And then from there, we will construct a component prototype. So what's nice about working... We're obviously going to go with the grazing concept. We're not going to hook this thing up to land. We're going to consume an Ouroboros sort of setup where it consumes all the energy that it produces. And so what's nice is we are going to, in this grazing concept, we can take this thing anywhere in the world. So we're going to go seek the highest delta T on planet Earth. And of course, that's close to the equator.
Delta T being the difference between the surface and the deep water temperature.
Yeah. And so in Hawaii, we're at
Just clarifying.
Keep up, Daddy.
We're towards the northern bounds of the OTEC zone in the tropics in Hawaii, right? We're 21 degrees north, and that's kind of the upper limit of, and our sea surface temperature year round is around 26 degrees C. And there's places that we can go close to the equator that are 32 degrees C. And so that's 6 degrees C. The way that you generate energy is the amount of energy you produce scales with the square of the delta T. So each degree of extra heat, of temperature you have has an outsized impact. So taking a plant from here in Hawaii and moving it to the equator, you could theoretically generate 70% more energy with the same equipment.
Wow.
So of course we have to do that to
course.
make the economics work at a 10 megawatt scale. And so we're first going to construct, what's nice about the equator is there's no hurricanes at the equator. It's called the doldrums for a reason. Hurricanes don't cross.
Why is that?
Well, the Coriolis effect and the Earth.
You say that like I should understand.
Keep up.
Keep up.
Go on, Danny. You explain the Coriolis effect.
I don't know the Coriolis effect, but I assume it's because there's not a big enough temperature differential to create it, right?
That's this. How toilets spin one.
Is he right?
We're talking to Danny. So you know how toilets spin one way, and then this isn't true. The toilets spin one way in the northern hemisphere and the other way in the southern.
Is that not true?
No, it's not true because it's not enough space. Yeah, it has to be over a long distance. And so hurricanes.
I always thought that was true.
No, that's bowl design. So if it's true, it's bowl design. Bowl design is the more important factor in the spin.
Wasn't it like Home Alone or something?
Yeah,
Probably.
something like that.
Some bullshit.
But hurricanes do.
Okay.
And so this isn't the exact way, but you can think of it like this: if hurricanes spin one direction in the northern hemisphere, and they have to spin another direction in the southern hemisphere, just based on the way that the Earth spins, right? Well, if they try to cross, they have to stop and then turn the other way, which of course they can't.
They die at that point. Yeah, I thought it was that.
And so what we can do is instead of, that 1930s plant was built in Cuba, a few months into operation.
Got hit.
Now, of course, everybody hurricane proofs their plants, right? So that doesn't have, scientists tend to learn from their mistakes. Engineers especially learn from their mistakes. They don't make the same mistake twice.
So let's fast forward. You've built the proof of concept. It works. There is a desire to then build these, not for Bitcoin mining, actually to provide the energy source for Hawaii. But, Hawaii can be hit with extreme weather. These ships can move maybe? When the
you would just... So when the hurricane comes... you just drop the deep water pipe. That's the only part that can really break. So you just drop that for a few days until it subsides, and then you rehook back up and you're on your way.
But so in those scenarios, you would need backup generation of energy?
During a hurricane, I mean, I don't know how many hurricanes you've been through, but my power always goes out in a hurricane anyway.
I mean, I've not been in any. I live in the UK.
I was reading the other day, though, that there's some homes in Florida they reckon will be without power for weeks.
We don't.
Same with Puerto Rico.
Yeah.
I have solar panels on my house, and those don't work obviously in the middle of a hurricane either. So
We don't get extreme. We get a little bit of wind sometimes, and sometimes some like roof tiles fall off people. There's like a meme that goes around when it's quite windy in the UK. Someone will take a photo of like a bin that's fallen over, and they'll say, "We will recover," or "We will rebuild."
Or like a garden chair tipped over.
Yeah, we will.
well, we can
we'll
save
come
a
back
lot
for
of
this.
money
Yeah.
by not having to hurricane proof our 10 megawatt demonstration. We can containerize the entire process and ISO containers, shipping containers, sea fasten it to a barge, cut the platform cost, cut the engineering time, cut the stand-up time, the integration time by just basically doing Legos.
But apart from those like freak weather events, could this act like baseload on the grid?
It is baseload. It's the
Because
heat
it never
capacity
stops.
the heat capacity of water is so high. It doesn't get cold at night, right, in the water.
So like obviously the big problem with solar and wind is that it's intermittent, but this could, along with solar and wind, I guess you can't get that everywhere though. You have to be coastal.
Well, it is. So it's you have to be coastal unless, of course, you have super grids, right? Unless the grids of all these countries are connected to each other, and then it could provide inland as far as the grid. It could provide energy as far inland as the grid goes.
Right.
But you lose energy the further you try and send it, and
unless you have to use higher and higher voltage DC.
What's really interesting is this is obviously a fascinating project. Adam Wright's project with
Vespine.
Vespine,
with regards to landfill sites, like burning off the methane. There's so many interesting projects.
My favorite thing about his project is he's created. I mean, Adam is a genius. He created an incentive for adults to pick up trash on a global scale.
Yeah.
Like, you can't get children, teenagers, or adults. I mean, there'll be a bin right there, and somebody will drop a cigarette butt on the ground. Imagine creating an incentive to pick up trash on a global scale. That always just blows my fucking mind.
Well, there's so many of these interesting projects. My question is, or the thing that's on my mind is, we need Bitcoin, one, to therefore succeed, because you don't want all these projects being built and then Bitcoin kind of just like stagnates or gets overregulated.
Don't these projects, isn't it a self-reinforcing loop?
I know that, but like you got to win the race.
I mean, let's say if Bitcoin bootstraps OTEC because this is the largest untapped energy source on the planet. I mean, we're talking, if you look at how much solar energy the world receives, right? It looks at the Earth on a flat disk. And if you look at the distribution of area on a flat disk, with a radius the size of the Earth, well, 50% of the world's area is located in the tropics on a flat disk Earth, not in the round world. But when you're looking at solar energy, it's only striking a flat plane. The sun sees us as a big flat plane.
Yeah.
And if you're looking at the Earth as a flat plane, 50% of that area is in the tropics, and 80% of the tropics is covered in the ocean. That means that 40% of all the solar energy that falls on planet Earth falls in the middle of the ocean, where there is no industry, there is no human civilization. It's the largest untapped energy source. And, I think the best estimate done so far is by this guy, Gerard Niehaus, who is an advisor to our company, been studying the OTEC for 50 years. He estimates that there's about 8 terawatts worth of this available in the ocean before you start cooling the surface of the ocean. Now, we're talking about thermal expansion of the ocean, so that may become something that we need to discuss. I'm not a fan of geoengineering, but as a last resort, that's a different conversation.
Is that sprinkling shit up in the atmosphere?
No, well, it's geoengineering. That is one way to do it. Yeah. Another option is iron seeding. You just take a ship, go dump iron, little bits of iron off the back of your boat. OTEC, if you start going above 8 terawatts and you start cooling, it's what we've been doing with carbon dioxide is geoengineering. We were just too stupid to. Well, no, we've known it would heat the planet up for 150 years. Shell, wrote about it. We have their
ExxonMobil.
We have their emails saying we should not talk about this, but this is what's happening. So simping for fossil fuels and then disregarding their own, your own BFF's writings is just silly.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's you just have to follow the money. It's the incentives, right? Of course, the fossil fuel industry, when their scientists discovered that burning fossil fuels increased carbon in the atmosphere and was going to warm up the planet, they had an incentive to change the narrative.
Yeah. Like Kodak, when they discovered the digital camera, and it's like, this is going to fuck over our entire business model.
And then did nothing about it.
Then did nothing about it.
So if one of these plants broke and it leaked ammonia, does that matter?
It's a closed cycle, so there's no way it leaks ammonia, and it's not enough to do anything.
Right. So why can't it leak ammonia?
It's a closed cycle, so it's not like they're in big vats. It's in giant, metal encasings. It's not something that leaks, right? It's not like it's not like a tanker of oil that spills in a crack in the hull. That's not how it.
Okay.
So you're going to prove the case with Bitcoin.
Yep.
But back to the point I was going to make is that we need Bitcoin to be successful and increasingly successful because there isn't enough usage of Bitcoin now to justify enough ASICs to deliver on all these projects.
Yep.
So that's what we need, Bitcoin to keep growing. So there's an incentive to build out these units because there's enough, Bitcoin's valuable enough to justify this. So we just need Bitcoin to keep growing.
Well, we only need, the Bitcoin becomes sort of ancillary the larger this project gets. At the 10 megawatts, Bitcoin is crucial. But at 100 and 400 megawatts, when it's connected to land, it's just to, for curtailment uses. Like, when turns out the tropics where OTEC is useful is also home to great sunlight and wind energy as well. And, in the middle of the day when the sun is shining, you have to curtail something. And well, because of the cold water, the free cooling, OTEC at scale is the most efficient way to produce Bitcoin. It makes sense to curtail the OTEC and then just mine Bitcoin.
I mean, I sense both of your excitement. You should come and say hello to the camera at some point.
Whenever you want me to.
Come and say hello now. Just come and say hello. Just come.
I'll just come say hi.
This is Michael. He's my co-founder.
Come around that side. Come around that side. Just introduce yourself on the mic. Mike.
How are you doing, everyone? My name is Michael, also known as Michael Hawaii on Twitter. Thank you
closer
for
to the
having
mic.
us. Thank you for having us, Peter.
You should have brought me a shirt.
It's very funny because my MO is I'll send all of these like very high up people shirts and the venture capitalists and so forth, and I always get a
So you're saying I'm not high up? I'm low down.
No, what I'm saying is I fucked up.
we talked about it last night, didn't we? You said I need a Hawaiian shirt.
So, Danny, if you can get us addresses after, we'd be more than happy, and sizes as well. I need to get you
This
one
is
too.
my
So I'll go
Noah.
with the calculator.
This is my 50th anniversary Noah shirt. The oceanographic.
Yeah. It's very cool. Everything you're doing is very cool, but it's good for everyone to see you because we keep shouting at you and you keep shouting back. So they should say hello.
Perfect. I'll be in there and back.
You'll be in there, drinking the whiskey.
Michael's, the business genius to the crazy mad scientist, engineer genius.
He's your Danny.
He carries me.
So, okay, right. So what's going on with your debate? Because it's a debate I want to hear. Because I want.
But before we get to that, let's talk about more of the baseload. We were on something there.
Oh yeah,
with
yeah,
the
of course.
baseload.
Yeah.
OTEC is baseload, and you're right that there's we've been able to identify 1,000 carbon-based plants around the world that have a higher cost of energy than our LCOE at scale. But that only makes up about 300 gigawatts of the 8 terawatts. So what do we do with the rest of it is the question, especially when it's in the middle of the ocean. Well, actually, I brought something for show and tell.
Oh man, awesome. What is this, man? What have you got here for us?
This is what's called a manganese nodule.
It looks like a shit.
It looks... That's a space poopy. That's a space peanut. Joke
If you told me
there.
this is actually not shit and this was just a trick to get me to have a shit.
Ha!
Anyone listening, I'm holding like a rock. It looks like, it does look like a shit. But it also, I can imagine this is volcanic rock.
No, that is a ball of pure metal.
What metal?
Well, the nickname for the manganese nodules are the battery rock.
Okay, explain this to me.
So this contains manganese, cobalt, nickel, copper, a bunch of trace, rare earth metals, depending on the formation region, lithium, and there are more. It's just a ball of metal.
Where does it come from?
Sitting on the floor of the ocean, 20,000 feet below the surface. And there are trillions of these over 10 million square kilometers across the Pacific.
This is what Elon
and
Musk
Indian
needs.
Ocean. Actually, Howard Hughes was the original, billionaire who was. There was this whole story of Howard Hughes, and they were working with the government. There was a Russian nuclear submarine that had crashed, right? And so the U.S. government worked with Howard Hughes on this farce to go mine these in the middle of the ocean, but the real reason was to go recover that nuclear sub. But the cover was to go mine these because these have been known for 70 years. And the largest and most economically important region for these is about 1,000 kilometers southeast of Hawaii. And, I asked the question earlier, it's like, well, to the solar people, well, where do you get those minerals?
What is the value of that?
This rock?
Yeah.
I don't know. I got this from a friend, but I think I've seen them sold online, because Hawaii, Manoa were my alma mater and who we're working with on some of the things. We study these, but I think on the open market, this is probably like $300 or so.
That piece there?
Yeah.
Because somebody wants to own it, or the value of the metals in it is about $300?
Yeah, about that.
Okay. Interesting.
Now, there's more of those metals that I mentioned in these rocks than are available terrestrially by, I forget the exact multiple, but it's a large multiple. And I think the estimated value of the Clarion-Clipperton fracture zone, the CCZ, which is that zone about 1,000 kilometers southeast of Hawaii, the total value of all these manganese nodules is about $60 trillion. Yeah.
What?
Yeah, $60 trillion.
Danny, let's get a sub.
Manganese nodules.
With a claw and a basket.
That's all you need.
The Wikipedia page for manganese nodules.
Just put it up,
polymetallic nodules. Either one will pull it up.
How did they get there?
So the region that they form, there you go.
Right.
The whole
Where's
seabed
the
just
sub with a
looks
claw?
like...
Cameron's got one, hasn't he?
So the region
James
that
Cameron.
they're formed is in the middle of the ocean.
Hold on. Very little is known about deep sea ecosystems or the potential impacts of deep sea mining. Polymetallic nodule fields are hotspots of abundance and diversity of highly vulnerable.
Abyssal fauna.
Yeah, what's abyssal fauna? You all know that.
So the abyssal zone is a region between a certain depth, right? There's the mesopelagic, the abyssal pelagic, the hadal pelagic, from the Marianas Trench. The abyssal pelagic is like the lowest.
You know a lot of stuff about the ocean.
I am an oceanographer.
I know. Okay. Nodule mining could affect tens of thousands of square kilometers of these deep sea ecosystems and ecosystems.
Millions.
Yeah, okay. So how do you get it without fucking that up?
So this is, this kind of touches on the question. Again,
Can you leave that up? I just want to read a bit more in a
Yeah.
second.
And then
Actually,
pull up the picture of the fields. I mean, it's
one of the-
absolutely beautiful.
Can you get the images up, Danny? People should check this out. Go and Google these manganese nodules. Can you go to Google Images?
Yeah, I'm doing that now. I've got it here.
And so the regions that these things are formed.
Holy shit! Look at that one.
Yeah. It's
Do you know what that reminds me of? That one there. Go on that one, Danny. Click on that image. It kind of reminds me of aliens. Do you know where they've got the pods?
balls of fucking metal sitting on the 20,000 feet below the surface. It is cuckoo bananas nuts.
And how did it get there? Sorry.
So the region that these are formed in, it's in the middle of the ocean, right? And the seafloor of any region is determined by the shit that falls down. Well, in the middle of the ocean, there's no terrigenous material from land. There's no coral. There's nothing really living above it. So there's nothing formed. There's nothing falling down. So what happens is you'll get a nucleation point, like a shark's tooth or a fish bone will fall from the surface, and around it, the dissolved metals in the ocean, just kind of glom on. Now, some of these form. There's hydrogenesis, and then there's diagenesis, formed right below the surface. Some are formed from dissolved metals in the ocean. Some are formed from dissolved metals here on the potato fields of the deep sea.
What is that? Gold in the middle there?
No, it's copper.
All right. Danny, go on that mine manganese nodule to the left of that.
This one?
Yeah. Pipe string.
Do these happen deep in the ocean because they need the pressure?
Yeah, pressure is a big portion of everything. But it's just that there's nothing falling down.
Right.
It takes tens of millions of years for something like this to form, right? It's not like, because there's not a lot of dissolved metals in the ocean.
Right.
And it's enough to power all the solar. There are enough of these minerals to build all the solar panels, all the batteries the world needs. And, we can move, instead of tearing down the rainforest with slave child labor.
I was going to say, this is going to put a lot of African 12-year-olds out of work.
And so it's really a, it's a binary question. You read the part about the mining, and it's if we need these minerals, where do we get them? Now, this region, again, there's not a lot of shit down there. There's high diversity of fauna, but there's a very low biomass versus the Congo rainforest, which is the last carbon negative rainforest on planet Earth. There is both a high diversity and high biomass.
Danny, can you go on that manganese nodules for sale?
Yeah. What is the cost of these things going to be?
Holy shit, look at that one. $5,700. That's too much. Can you go on eBay? Let's have a look.
I got to do this on my screen because I can't see that one.
Right. I'm going to be honest. Some of them look cooler than yours.
They do, yeah.
And that one there does look, the E-Rocks mineral auction, that does look like one of those aliens.
Yeah. Like an alien, like the egg.
The pod, the egg.
Yeah.
Wow, this is amazing.
Yeah.
Hold on.
Fuck tungsten cubes.
Yeah.
Buy manganese nodules.
Nick Carter, we got something here for you.
Would it damage the ocean floor to mine those? And does it matter at that depth?
So, and that's the question. You've touched on the binary question of where do we get the metals? We need these metals. Mm-hmm. There's no question about that. Where do we get them? Do we get them from the bottom of the ocean, which is a terminal? The abyssal pelagic, the abyssal benthic zone is a terminal ecosystem. Shit falls down there, but the question is whether it comes back up. And the answer is no one can tell us because there's no clear signs that it does. Now, we know that the rainforest is highly connected ecosystem.
Yeah.
There's no question there. Now, whether the things live there that live on these manganese nodules. And of course, so the ISA, the International Seabed Authority, under the charter from the UN, has already issued permits. They've issued permits for the extraction of these to, I think, about 1 million square kilometers have been permitted for extraction. And then another million, they've sold off the parcels of land. And then another 1 million square kilometers have been reserved for developing countries who can't compete with your China's, Germany, US, France, Japan. They all have stakes. So half of the mining area for these has been reserved for developing countries so that the entire world can share in this mineral wealth that is
How?
collective.
But how? Because this is international waters, right?
Yep.
Who owns that land?
The International Seabed Authority has jurisdiction over it.
Who gives them jurisdiction?
The UN.
Okay.
So member nations, which of course they all are.
Sorry, I'm so distracted by that. Superb rare ancient Madagascar. You got this Madagascar one? Also, it makes me laugh. It's like it's in the used category. What the fuck have they used it for? Superb rare ancient Madagascar septarian nodule. Looks like a dinosaur egg fossil gemstone. $2,500. I want it. I don't know what I'll do with it, but I want it.
Display.
Yeah. So
You keep it on the table for all future guests who
Yeah.
have to say you have to find $60 trillion worth of minerals that are not being used.
do you know what we could do? Just put it there and say, listen, I'm not going to tell you what this is, but I dare you to touch it. People will instantly freak out and they won't know why. I'm not fucking touching that.
We're
Danny,
gonna meme manganese nodules into
Dude,
the
these are
public
cool.
consciousness.
How do I get one? You want to sell me that one?
No, this one's
So that one's yours.
personal.
I want one.
But so we kind of missed a link. So
Oh, yeah. What has that got to do with anything?
it came from like you're going to have tons of excess energy, but obviously presumably that's to mine these. But like how?
Well, it turns out that every manganese nodule region happens to be in the OTEC zone, and that a huge right now the reason why we're not mining these is because obviously it doesn't reach cost parity with terrigenous sources. So it turns out that in the middle of the ocean, a large scale mining operation needs a lot of energy, and that equates to about 40% of the cost of pulling these out. Now, that requires shipping in just an absolute shit ton of fossil fuels, which have variable cost. As we're seeing now, the cost is even higher. Well, if you had, let's say there was some magical source of energy
In the middle of the ocean.
in the middle of the ocean
Right
at
where they
3
are.
cents per kilowatt hour, or of course, in the middle of the ocean where there are no other energies, what we sell that energy for is a different question. We produce it for 3 cents. What we sell it for is another question.
Right.
We'll mine it. We'll mine Bitcoin at the 3 cent. We sell it to ourselves for 3 cents. Well, we sell it to someone else 5 cents, 6 cents, whatever multiple. There are no other energy sources in the middle of the ocean.
So on the timeline of everything you're doing, where does this sit? Because you're going to do the proof of concept.
Yep.
When do you start mining?
I'm not going to mine these. No,
You're going to give someone else the energy. You're going to sell it to them so they can do it.
So like I said, the ISA has already permitted mining, and it looks like the most likely case is there's going to be the first country, Nauru, has petitioned the ISA to commence activity in 2023. They're not ready, obviously, but it's to spur the ISA to issue guidelines to do so. And there's most likely going to be a moratorium for about 10 years is what the world is sort of moving towards. And it turns out 10 years is about our timeline to get 100 to 400 megawatt OTEC stand-up. So there's this convergent evolution of these two technologies. And then there's, of course, all these other use cases that people aren't considering in the middle of the ocean. Green hydrogen production. There's obviously no way you're going to be able to produce green hydrogen at cost parity with steam methane reforming using fucking solar. Obviously,
I was just
solar
thinking,
panels and wind. Duh. But 3 cents per kilowatt hour, and instead of having to go to, say, the Sahara, or all the ships in the world for hydrogen have to go to a handful of locations. Well, if you only have to travel to the equator, it's saving you a big chunk of change. And with unlimited energy, you can solve unlimited problems. You can beat back, if you have unlimited energy, you can beat back sea level rise. If you have unlimited energy, you can beat back shifts in the water cycle.
Well, they talk about civilization types and how they harness energy, right? Isn't it like what are we? Are we still a type 1
this like
civilization?
We
the
are
Kardashev-
0.7.
We're 0.7.
0.7 on and this was Sagan. So Sagan's contribution
that
to
up?
this.
Yeah.
Sagan's contribution was an actual formula. And so the way that type 1 civilization is defined is, a civilization that use all the energy that's available to it from its home star
Yeah.
on its home planet. Well, that number is defined by what I was talking about earlier, and energy from the sun on a flat Earth, on a flat disk.
We're at 0.73 on this scale. See, you do know everything. Type 2 can harness the total energy of its planet's parent star.
40% of type 1 is only available through OTEC. There is no type 1 without OTEC. And what that means is most likely if we don't do OTEC, then the Kardashev scale is often linked to the Fermi paradox,
Yes.
right?
I love the Fermi paradox.
And the most likely explanation for the Fermi paradox is that the great filter is ahead of us, and it's
It's our stupidity.
it's our stupidity, our resource use, and our inability to get all of the energy that is available to us from the sun. Again, 40% of that is only available through OTEC, and we can use that energy to go get these fucking rocks from the bottom of the fucking ocean and make all the fucking batteries and solar panels.
Do you know why I love this shit? Like this Kardashian scale.
The Kardashian scale.
Yeah, the reason I like the Kardashian scale is because it's like this prediction about energy usage across the universe where we've got no evidence that anyone has reached type 2 or type 3. But the reason I love it is I'm a bit of a space nerd. So I follow some of like the space website. I read like New Scientist and shit like that. But like they have these radio signals that occasionally they're like, we've had these fast radio bursts they call on them, and they're like, it's intermittent, it doesn't make any sense unless they've got a Dyson sphere around their sun.
The other option, of course, is
the
neutron stars do some weird shit. Man.
But like they've invented the Dyson sphere with the expectation that advanced civilizations in other galaxies,
and so we
may have done
can,
it.
we have a very clear pathway to do that. We can create a single robot that we send to Mercury, which starts to reproduce itself at some point. It starts mining away we have to cannibalize the entire, planet of Mercury. You send the 1, it becomes 2, then 4, and 8 and 16, on and on and on. And then
how does it
creates the
reproduce
factories?
itself?
Well, it mines the ore on Mercury, right? Again, cannibalizing Mercury to build more of itself, which then you build the factories to build the giant solar panels, which then, and not Dyson sphere, but a Dyson swarm. Because if you have a Dyson sphere.
Okay. How many interviews have you done?
I don't know, maybe half a dozen.
Okay. I will admit I'm going to be on the dumber end of the scale, but still, you can't just throw these things out there and not explain them. Like, what's a Dyson's for? Unless Danny already knows, he's been acting like a smart ass.
No, but you get this one.
Yeah, right.
Oh, a Dyson sphere. Actually, they made a fun movie, Moonfall, recently.
Yeah, I saw that. I haven't seen the film. I keep seeing it when I go on the plane.
It's terrible.
Yeah, because it's
dumb. It's like The Core. It's a really stupid fucking movie, but if you want to just turn your brain off and have a good time, it's a good time.
Isn't it a comedy?
No, it's
like The Core. It's a.
Oh no, I'm confusing it with something else.
It's where literally the moon falls.
The moon falls, and it's because the moon. Spoiler alert. The moon is a mega structure. It's a Dyson sphere, which is a fully enclosed, basically, battery, right? You capture a star, you fully enclose it, and you use all the energy available. That's type 2, right? Now, a Dyson swarm is, instead of fully enclosing it, you just have solar, because of course we still need the sun. If you fully enclose it, there's no sun. And that would be bad.
What do you think with the Fermi paradox? Do you think the great filter, like no one's ever got past a great filter, or they have and they don't give a shit about us, or they have and they haven't found us, or they haven't, the universe is quite a big place.
Yeah. 13.9 billion years old. If a civilization had 1,000 years head start on us, from technological perspective, they would be at type 2. a million years, a billion years head start, they're type 3 and beyond. Because there are beyond type 3. The scale has been amended over the years.
Is there a type 4?
Yeah, there's type 5 as
no,
well.
no. I think it goes up to like type 10. I'm sure I researched this with somebody, and there's like some weird.
Well, we did a whole show on the Fermi paradox with BJ, didn't we?
Yeah, so look up type 5, Danny, first.
I mean, it just...
We'll jump one.
The main 3 are the type 1, 2, and 3. That's really all that matters.
No, but I'm sure it goes up to like type 10. I'm
Using
sure.
all the energy of the multiverse.
Right, type 4, capable of using energy at the scale of the universe. Create galaxies, manipulate space-time. Okay. Type 5, capable of using energy at the scale of the multiverse. Travel to parallel universes and simulate universes. Okay, so we could be in the simulation.
Oh, there's a very high likelihood we are a simulation, yeah.
Type 6, civilization that exists beyond time and space or in higher dimensions, creates and destroys multiverses. I think it goes higher. Can you, you don't need pictures.
I'll keep going.
See if you can find a type 10, because I'm sure I went with that high.
I mean, you got to be pretty high to talk about for type 10.
I was probably drunk. I don't. Here we go. Type X. The civilization has explored every universe, multiverse, megaverse, omniverse. What the fuck is a megaverse
So
and omniverse?
that would be the Avengers.
What's a megaverse?
Well, you should ask Tony Stark.
Omniverse in all dimensions of the hyper. What the fuck's a hyperverse? We are gods to countless civilization, have far greater understanding of realms beyond reality in the outerverse. Come on, man. They're taking the piss now. The exponential nature of the scale tops here, as time is meaningless beyond reality. An eon is like a second to those who dwell there and beyond, and space has no bound. That's almost poetic. Create and destroy omnidimension. Hold on, no, it does. It's going further because it's got. Scroll. How far down? Member of the afterlife after eons of initiation and tests from its lower hierarchy.
I mean, it's just bullshit.
But 10.8 made a book.
It reads like an ICO white paper.
Hold on, look, 10.8, all these things, right? So 10.7, contact with other dimensional godlike beings in the afterlife and awareness of strange beings. 10.6, discovery of the afterlife is contained in the second realm.
The Council of Reeds.
But no, you get to 10.8 and it's like, made a book. I wrote a book.
So God's at 10.8.
I saw the multiverse of madness.
Navigation to Kardashian type. Hold on.
The Kardashian.
Hold on, Danny. Look, it goes further. Like you've got type 25, 27, type 29, type 30, brain. Hold on. Can we? Sorry, anyone listening is like, what the fuck you on about? You've got to watch the video. What's type 30?
I don't know what we get. This.
Can you click on that? Type 30 civilization exists beyond the highest planes outside reality and non-reality. There are gatekeepers of the beyond.
The Beyonders.
They are the Beyonders.
Yeah, this is Marvel. We're getting into the we can go. Let's go into Marvel.
Type 30 civilization live in the 10th level or tier of the pyramid. The actuality of the Beyonders and their home is unknown and unknowable, and therefore is a concept. But it's what the fuck? All right, we go to I.
Oh dear.
Oh, and then brain.
The I is a type 30 citizen. This is the all-knowing, all-seeing I. Like this is getting into like
Lord of the Rings.
No, it's like Handmaid's Tale. Isn't there the eye in that? All-seeing eye, capable of overseeing all that happens in the pyramid. The eye, that's basically God. Yeah. The eye confirms and forces all systems of morality and science. Okay, someone's just like made this shit up.
They're definitely taking the
Can we go to brain? The brain controls the eye, and that happens in the pyramid. The brain makes the... Honestly, anyone listening to this is like, what the hell are you on about? Look, just search for, not the Kardashian scale. Search for the Kardashev type. Kardashev. What is Kardashev? Is that a dude? Like he just
it's a dude. He's a Soviet physicist.
So he wrote all this.
No. He talked about type 1, 2, and 3, and then Carl Sagan expanded it with a formula.
And then some dudes did some mushrooms.
Yeah, some crazy.
Oh, that's where it is. Look, Omniverse takes you up to type 7. Hyperverse takes you up to type 9. Outerverse takes you up to type 13. Adverse takes you up to type 19. Beyond minus takes you up to type 25, and beyond plus takes you up to brain.
I mean, none of those are. I mean, the Kardashev scale is just 1, 2.
I know what's going to happen now. So I do this thing sometimes when I get into bed and I know I should go to sleep, and I get on my phone and I go down Wikipedia rabbit holes. I know tonight that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go to bed about 10, thinking I need to get up early, and I'm going to be about 2 hours in this rabbit hole. Okay, man, listen. By the way, this is amazing. Let's.
But yeah, 40% of all the energy available, to a Type 1 civilization is only accessible via OTEC. What we use that energy for, whether it's connecting supergrids with a string of daisy-chained OTEC, platforms across the equator connecting all the different continents, whether we, stick, an OTEC power plant on the bottom floor of a cruise ship and create, floating society. One of the problems with seasteading was always they didn't have an energy source. They'd have to come back to land.
the Freedom Ship.
Yeah.
Remember the Freedom Ship?
No.
We've had that on the show before, haven't we?
I think it came up in the Peter Young show we did.
Yeah, bring up the Freedom Ship. So this was a thing I followed years ago. It must have been like 15 years ago. This concept of a ship that would just, it's like a floating country. Just floated around the world. Hear this.
Oh,
like I followed it for
yeah.
ages, and I was super fascinated by it.
They didn't have an energy source, and so they'd have to dock eventually. With OTEC, you could be out there indefinitely.
You could look at the size of that thing.
Of course, with with an energy source, you can grow food. With an energy source, you can desalinate water. With an energy source, you can have life.
Desalination, the problem is energy, isn't it? It takes
it's
a huge amount of energy.
3 kilowatt hours per meter cubed.
Yeah. The interesting stuff about things like this, they show you like the graphics of how it's going to look, and it all looks pretty and amazing. It's going to be brilliant. But the truth is, it's still going to be Snowpiercer.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting enough, because that's what I thought about when I was reading or listening to Project Hail Mary guide book.
Mm-hmm.
What's the moon one?
Artemis.
Yeah, Artemis. Do you know Project Hail Mary?
Mm-mm.
Same guy who wrote the
Martian.
Martian, yeah.
You've
Andy
seen The
Weir's
Martian,
book.
right?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, so he did this other book called Project Hail Mary. I won't go into too much detail, but based on what I know about you, I think you would love this book. And it's just about this guy who's got to save planet Earth, right? He also did this book called Artemis, which is about the moon and the colony has been established on the moon. But basically, they do a very good job of building this picture of this colony on the moon, but there's a social structure and like how you live if you were one of the kind of peasant workers there and the different access you have to resources and such.
Right.
So they do a really good job of that. I always think these people skip it.
Well, how, do we have a moon even an outpost by the end of this century? I think maybe. Not definitively. Do we have will there be, I can tell you definitively there will not be permanent civilization on the moon by the end of the century. That's flat out ridiculous.
Why?
Because you can't go outside. You can't. We couldn't build a fully self-contained society on planet Earth.
Yeah, but we
can't do that.
Could you have like the International Space Station, like a small?
People didn't live there for their entire lives.
No. But like,
they needed food. They needed water to be brought in.
But don't you see like a potential building a permanent structure and having a rotating?
Yeah, but that's not
population.
Permanent civilization.
Okay.
A colony versus a military or scientific outpost are two very different questions.
But do you not see we'll get an outpost? Like the start of establishing
Possibly.
colonies?
A scientific outpost is, there's a maybe that'll happen by the end of the century. It's not a definite because there's a lot of shit that happens. I mean,
there's a really good Apple TV series. I made you watch it called First.
For All Mankind.
For Mankind, yeah. So it's about the space race and plot spoiler. If you've never seen it, you want to see it, ignore the next minute. But basically, they just tweak history, and the Russians make it to the moon first. That's all they do. But from there, they end up building outposts. The Americans and the Russians, and what happens, and it's really fascinating. It's well worth watching.
Living in space is a real problem. I mean, the radiation thing is not a problem that anyone has proposed to solve outside of a 3-meter water encasement, which how are you going to get that water? If we can't build it on the ocean, if we can't build a permanent civilization on the ocean first, that has to happen first. We can't build a permanent civilization in Antarctica. People don't live there for their entire lives. They go there, they do research, they come back. If we can't do this on the ocean first with an inexhaustible energy source, one of the cool things about OTEC is that, it takes in water from deep, and that water is super nutrient dense. And so when in a moored concept, you can't release it at the surface and the photic layer, the area that light reaches down to, because you'll get eutrophication, you'll get red tides is the word people have, shit like that.
Yeah.
In the grazing concept, you can actually release it at in the photic layer and stimulate primary productivity. So one of the interesting, byproducts of grazing OTEC is carbon capture and storage. And if you can mine Bitcoin, you can do this profitably, which would be the first profitable implementation of carbon capture and storage on planet Earth. And what's cool is you'll have this entire ecosystem. You'll get all these, mega fish come around so you'll have basically a floating fishery out there. So you have all the food you need. You have all the energy you would need to create your own fresh water supply. With energy, you can, do the vertical farming and shit. So we have all the pieces. And if we can't do it on the ocean first, fuck, you're never going to do it in space. Are you kidding me? If we can't do it first here.
So do you think Elon Musk's whole get us to Mars thing is basically bullshit? Because the reason I think it might be, I think obviously he's a fucking incredible person, achieved
what he's done
infinitely
with
more.
Industrialization, with factory production, with all these things, and then there's the marketing portion.
So I first time I came to Austin, funny we were in Austin, was for a South by Southwest. God, when was that? It would have been about 10 years ago. And I used to work in marketing, and I came for the marketing, and I ended up looking at all the different things that were on. I decided to fucking sack them all off. I ended up going to, one of them I went to was NASA, and they ran a panel talking about going to the moon. Going to Mars. To all the challenges of getting to Mars. And they said the biggest problem we haven't solved is the radiation problem. Because anyone there is going to get absolutely
super
hit.
Cancer.
Yeah, they're just going to hit.
Super cancer.
And they said, that's our, we've got a lot of problems to solve to get there. That's our biggest problem.
And then there's the water, of course. You're not going to have enough water to get there. You're not going to have the food you would need to bring on board would take up the entirety of your cargo space, plus some. There's not enough cargo room for all the food you need. There's not enough cargo room for all the water you need. There's no space for you. It's going to be, if anything, a small crew, and they're most likely not going to come back. And you have to be trapped there for 3. Yeah, no.
But the ambition of doing this creates a good story to tell for a company that actually has innovated in space cargo and space exploration. And has made them a successful, profitable business.
The Falcon 9 is a beautiful rocket.
Yeah.
I love the Falcon 9. I'm ambivalent on the Starship Super Heavy. That's a big fucking rocket, but he's got big tubes that I'd love to get my hands on. He's got the production capacity for giant tubes, and I need about 1 kilometer worth of them.
Based on everything he's invested in, though, I could imagine he would be super interested in what you're doing.
And I would absolutely, Elon, I would love to chat with you. You're,
Well, me and Elon are friends. He's a regular listener. So if you want to give him a message. Okay. It's probably a conversation to have with Michael later, but I'm assuming that you're not struggling to get investment into this project. You probably can't even talk about that, but...
if you're interested, renewable energy, decentralizing Bitcoin, pushing the bounds of human society, we would love to chat.
Yeah, okay. Can we now talk about you debating...
Safe.
Well, anyone, not just safe. I don't particularly want to just say... I would love to have... I enjoyed my conversation with Alex Epstein, but whilst I should be interviewing him, I wanted to push back on things. But, I'm not armed with the information you have, the background. I haven't done what you've done. So when I push back,
10 years worth of study will make you learn a few
I
things
will struggle.
along the way.
And I think it's useful for someone like him to be pushed back, because as much as I can't push back on him because I don't have the experience, I think also people who are repeating what he says don't have the ability to decipher what's right and what's wrong. So I think it's not an attack on Alex. Like I say, Alex has shifted my thinking, but I'd like my thinking to be as accurate as possible. Therefore, I would like you to sit with him and see if you change his opinion or he changes yours. So I'd love to make that one happen if we can. We should try and make that happen in LA.
I mean, the science of climate change is irrefutable. There is no debate whether.
I don't think he would debate you on that point.
Yeah,
I think it's
what do we do about it? My solution is OTEC. My solution is let's go get 8 terawatts of extra energy that's just fucking sitting there. And his solution is let's keep business as normal, even though we know or have the best models humanity can produce. They're not, all models are wrong. Some models are, enlightening. Some models teach you something. And the best models that all of humanity, the collective knowledge of humanity have been able to produce, say business as normal leads to a disastrous outcome for human race, all people.
Right.
Now, the question is, what do we do about that? Do we bury our heads in the fucking sand and do nothing? Or do we fight? Like human beings do, we fucking fight, and we have to fight. And OTEC is that fight.
Your anger just
broke some shit.
That was some Jedi fucking move you pulled there. Okay, so when are you debating safe? Because like Danny messaged me the other day. Danny is a huge fan of safety, and he said Nate is going to be debating safe on climate change. What happened there? What's the background? Where are we at?
So yeah, he I responded to some Twitter call out, and my initial email was I pointed out that he used a rather.
What do you mean initial email? Like
I said, we got into we're debating the time, the format. Safe wants to do this debate on his platform where he has the ultimate control, where he's the moderator of his. And the moderator and participant with the edit button at the end. Yeah. That's his proposal. And you can't moderate a debate yourself. And he refuses right now. He's currently refusing to do it in any other way where he moderates himself and me and has an edit button. He refuses to do it in person. He refuses to fly anywhere to do this. And then I simply pointed out that the language he chose was not really good for himself because climate crisis is the term he's a stickler. I try to say, well, let's use, anthropogenic climate change. It's a well-defined term. That's something we can debate. Climate crisis is not really well-defined term. So I wrote a 2,000-word email where I went and I pulled the receipts and went to the primary source, the person, the piece of the literature that actually coined the term climate crisis, and it's undercase, right? It's lowercase letters. So, and he used a climate crisis rather than the climate. I showed him how stupid the sentence he wrote. It's clear he just didn't.
What was the framework of the debate that he wanted? I have not seen the tweets. Have you got it up, Danny?
Yeah. He wanted to talk about the bullshit he's always talking about how eating bugs and the climate hysteria. And I'm a climate scientist. I don't participate in the climate act. I eat meat, even though I know that the agro business is.
All right. I would like to host someone on my podcast to debate me by arguing for the proposition human CO2 emissions are causing a climate crisis.
A climate crisis.
Are causing or will cause. I mean, look, the language is important here, but like you can separate from your let's do it, bud. Wait, so you're going to argue in the affirmative that human CO2 emissions are causing a climate crisis. And so you, Mr. Harmon, said, I am a geochemist, has been to the Mauna Loa and station. Okay, great. Okay, fantastic. Thank you for stepping in. So safety and accepted. Forget you can pick apart the words or whatever, but like he wants to have the discussion.
The problem of the words, and he was being a very stickler that it has to be the exact sentence. And so what I showed in this email is that if you do the sentence, and I laid out the argument that I was going to, do in person, and it was just not, it was a semantic argument, because if we're debating this exact sentence, there is no way for him to talk about. I think there is a very valuable debate to have, a very valuable conversation to have about what do we do? Now, that won't happen with this sentence, because as written, if he wants to do the exact sentence as written, well, that becomes a semantic argument, and I win that 100% of the time because I pulled the primary source.
Right. Okay.
There is no debate over that sentence. It's clear he just didn't do enough research on that sentence.
But Seasteading has a general skepticism towards anybody who believes that there is or will be a climate crisis.
What is the definition of a climate crisis?
That's a problem.
No. It's actually defined.
Well,
we know this.
Yeah, but I think you can use it. I think you can twist it.
You can, but in
Like
a
someone
debate, it would be irrelevant. And so this is why we need an independent moderator, because if we use climate crisis, this is a term that has a meaning, and we can't discuss some nebulous concept where there is nothing to argue. One person's arguing against one thing, the other person's arguing against something else.
Purposes.
That's a ridiculous proposition. And if we argue that, we have to argue, it's in quotes, that exact sentence. And if that's the proposition, that's the proposition I have to defend. That's 100% win every time. There is no wiggle room, because that word climate crisis is well defined. We know exactly where it comes from.
How is it defined?
So it comes from this paper. Actually, the title of the paper is something climate emergency. It has climate crisis is not in the title. In that paper, there's two sections. There's a section that defines 18 vital signs of the Earth that are in crisis. Right, a crisis is a pivot point from one state to another state, and that's how the word crisis is used. Only 4 times in the course of this paper where that term climate crisis is first coined. And in that paper, it defines the crisis as the pivot point for 18 vital signs of the Earth system, and they are in flux. And those 18 different vital signs are all listed in the only source. The only citation on any sentence that includes the word crisis is from the IPCC reports. So then now it's a scientific question is what it comes down to. And as I don't want to have that conversation, because now it's a semantic argument that I win, and it's no fun for everyone, and it precludes him talking about the things that he wants to talk about.
Because the thing I want to happen is, what is the trajectory we are on? Where is that leading us? Should we do something about it?
Yeah.
And if we should, what are the things?
And so the question I have, and we're trying to work out through email, is, what is, we have to find some point of agreement. Things are happening, right? We have to either take the IPCC, we either have to debate the IPCC report, which is the collection of human knowledge on this subject, the vast collection. We either have to start from. That is the starting point. And if we can't agree on that, the debate is about that. We can't have the discussion of what we do. And I want to have a discussion about what we do, but we have to both be on the same understanding that the IPCC report is not a fiat-funded, Illuminati conspiracy theory. It is the collection of hundreds of thousands of individuals, like myself, making the trek up the fucking mountain, making the trek to Station Aloha to make these measurements that are done in the exact same way using standards agreed to. The PDB standard is the standard for carbon, for carbon isotopes, for oxygen isotopes. There is no debate over what that fucking standard is. And if we can't agree that we are all on the same page, we have to debate that. And I want to have that.
He's bottled it.
Yeah, he's bottled it to that sentence,
Sorry, bottle is a British term. Get up an Urban Dictionary. Do you know Urban Dictionary?
Yeah,
yeah. So it's very good for explaining British terms. But bottle it doesn't mean bottle it down to a single point. It basically means you've shit your pants.
Yeah, he's not
Like if
excited.
like
I
in,
QED'd it.
in football, if you're throwing goal, or you got a penalty to win the game, you miss. You say, oh,
Go Bedford.
You go Bedford. You say they bottled it. It means you shit
It's
yourself.
this one here.
Yeah. Daddy, come on, man. Daddy, I can't put that up. My dad now listens to the show.
Well, as long as he doesn't watch it, he
Bottled
won't see
it. When someone decides to opt out of a rather nerve-wracking task instead of just growing some gonads and doing it. So we're basically
That's
saying
basically
opt out.
it.
So me and Safe are really good friends. So I can no. Me and Safe fell out, and we fell out. The starting point of us falling out was climate change. I've obviously made my views clear on this, and I've accepted I'm a hypocrite. But I put out a tweet. See if you can find it, Danny, at Pete McCormack, where I just call everyone an idiot. But at Pete McCormack, and you're an idiot. But
It's
I put
gonna be a
out.
lot.
Yeah.
I mean, I have sympathy for the, it's happening, but moving the ship at this point would cause irreparable damage, and we shouldn't do anything and let the people who are get fucked by climate change get fucked by climate change. They'll move. I mean, that is an absolute just. I mean, is it? I don't know if you call it a genocide, but dooming people.
Yeah. So look, I put out, you're an idiot if you deny climate change is real. You claim that the current change is a natural weather cycle. You claim models are inaccurate. You claim climate change is too expensive to fix. You claim it is not a crisis. So I put this out in 2020. Got a lot of likes. Got a lot of pushback. But look, maybe I shouldn't say you're an idiot. Maybe I should have picked my language better and say you've got it wrong. But climate change is real. We know that's true.
The only one that I have any, pushback on is your claim models are inaccurate. All models are wrong. Some are useful.
Okay. But we've done the research into the models, haven't we? And the models are so accurate that they've
But
did
they're
one
wrong.
receiver. Yeah.
They're wrong, but they're useful.
When you say they're wrong, are they wrong because it's impossible for a model to be 100% accurate?
Yeah,
But
it's
trajectory-
analog versus digital. You can never recreate the analog world within a digital world.
Of course, but like trajectory rise, people claim the problems with the models. Actually,
So I've modeled the price of Bitcoin. If we're trying to price out
find that article
a
on the
power
models.
plant for 30 years, I have to model the price of Bitcoin 30 years into the future. I built a model, a really cool model that has only two independent variables. One of those variables is that more energy into the Bitcoin system over time. As time goes on, there will be more and more energy participating in the proof of work. The other independent variable is that the all-in price that the Bitcoin network pays per kilowatt hour that goes into it will continue to decrease over time. Those are the only two independent variables. And, what I come up, is that wrong? Yeah, of course it's wrong. Is it going to be accurate over the time period that I'm looking at? If I'm looking at 30 years, I don't really care about what the price of Bitcoin is in a year to year. I care about what it is over a 30-year. I think it's pretty accurate over a 30-year time period.
Yeah.
And that's what the models are. They're not to say, oh, in this year it's going to be this temperature and this is going to happen. It's saying, hey, climate is defined by weather patterns over a 30-year span. If you talk about anything that's not a 30-year climatic pattern, you're not talking about climate.
But
Sorry.
my point, no, it's fine. But my point on the models is the pushback I've received is, oh, but the models are always wrong. Now we did the research, and wasn't it something like, if you found the article?
No, I don't know. To be honest, I don't know what.
So they're
If
well
you-
within the bounds. The errors.
But I think you're kind of like arguing the same point.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we're
no, but
arguing
what
the
I'm saying is, if try and search for climate models are so accurate they've received a Nobel Prize, because I'm pretty sure that's the one.
My advisor won the Nobel Prize for the IPCC 2009 report. Chris Sabine, you can pull up the acceptance speech. That was my chairperson on my graduate committee.
See, one of the problems I had, if you found it,
I don't know. It could be this.
how climate models got so accurate they earned a Nobel Prize. Yeah, climate predictions were treated with heavy skepticism just 30 years ago, but they've become our main window into how global warming works. Yada, yada. 2 weeks ago, Catherine Hayhoe, I've interviewed her. Texas University was a guest on a popular CBS show, Jimmy Kimmel Live. Blah, blah, blah. Okay. Anyway, we can put that in the show notes. The
But
point
yes.
being is, what I found is that those on the skeptical denial kind of side will find one wrong model and say it's all wrong.
Yep.
Or they'll say climate is always changing, or they'll find something maybe like Alex Epstein has said.
I can explain. You want to go into why the climate changes over a long period? What time scale? Because why climate changing is on different time scales is different.
No, but the point I'm trying to get to is people latch onto certain things. And by the way, it happens the other way around.
Of course.
Also, the activists latch onto. They'll find something like cow farts and they'll say, we all have to stop eating meat.
Oh, note on that. Sorry, I don't mean it's not cow farts.
I know it's burps.
It's burps.
But farts is better.
Only the first gut of the ruminant produces methane. So cow farts is inaccurate. It's cow burps.
I know. So I put out that tweet. I didn't think it was a bad tweet, but that was the start, because me and Seasteading, we used to share an interest in Liverpool Football Club and Bitcoin. We got on. I put out that tweet. He yelled at me, blocked me. I might have called him a psychopath and compared him to the Nazis. He tried to cancel me. Wrote to my sponsors. Like, we went through this. Yeah, no, he did. We went through this cycle. He wrote to all my sponsors and said, fucking stop sponsoring him. Like, this whole shit happened. But you know what? We shouldn't be enemies. Like, in these scenarios, I've put my hand out to Safe more than one occasion and said, look, we don't have to be friends, but we're in the same sphere. If we agree, we can work on the same team and expand the knowledge of Bitcoin and grow Bitcoin. And if we disagree, we can arrange the discussion so we try and find truth. But what my issue I found with Safe is that when he's challenged, it comes down to insults or blocking people. And the problem, there's multiple problems with that. First problem I see with that is that it creates this kind of information bias. It creates this closed cycle. It becomes influential for other people. But also, when I'm trying to get my friends into Bitcoin and they think, people say, oh, you have to read the Bitcoin Standard, and then they follow me on Twitter and see all this crazy bullshit, it puts them off. I know for a fact it puts them off. And this isn't useful.
Sorry.
Eric Yates, we need Eric Yates' book. Eric Yates wrote this great fly swatting book called Bitcoin the Seventh Property. Actually, it's an amazing book. But the point is on Safe is me and him have fallen out for whatever reason, and I will constantly say, Safe, if you want to bury the hatchet and discuss these things, or let's try and find truth together. Let's just try and find truth. If you block yourself out from other arguments, are you really finding truth? So I would host a discussion with you and Safe. I would actually, I would agree the rules. We can agree the discussion topics up front. I can just do time management, but I want it to happen. I don't care if it's me or someone else, but it needs to happen.
Yeah.
We need to get to this point where, because the trajectory of where we're heading isn't great.
And this is why the language is so important, because something as simple as a choice of the word a climate crisis is the indefinite article rather than the definite article. And if we have to debate a proposition, that's the proposition. And so by choice of I only have to prove that a single climate on planet Earth is changing and that is only due to human cause, right? And that's not a fun debate, because good thing the paper that defines climate crisis lists 18 with extremely, and he has to know which one he has to be, and that's not which one I'm going to talk about as any single climate crisis, and so we're in the talks about what the exact language is.
Oh, look, I hope it happens. It needs to happen. Me
too.
It needs to happen because
it's on him at this point.
Well, people are influential, and voices are influential, and we know people out there who aren't smart enough, because I've done this. Will see somebody they follow say, somebody they respect, and then they'll start repeating that. I've had it. I've literally watched people say things, and then I read Alex Epstein's book, and they've just repeated what he said.
Yeah.
They haven't done the research; they've just said it, right? So we know this happens. Which we know if someone in authority is writing something which is false, other people are going to disseminate that, and that false information is going to spread. And we should all care about the truth over being right.
Now, what we do about, and that's where the key, where I think the real valuable conversation is not debating the science, because again, I am a scientist and I can back that shit up with fucking receipts. And that's not going to be a fun debate for anybody. What's the fun debate is, what do we actually do about it?
We should put out a tweet. Say, we've made the show. Dan is winning. Nate is winning. There is a Dan Harmon. Dan Holman.
Yeah, no, Dan Harmon is Rick and Morty, baby.
Yeah.
And Community, 6 seasons in a movie. It's fucking happening.
Neil Berkeley, who directs my films, made a film about Dan Harmon. But I was also thinking of Dan Holman, who is the ex-Torquay striker, who our Bedford rivals, Northampton and Chenooks, have signed. He's playing up front for them.
Why don't we just ask Alex if he wants to do it?
Alex might do it.
I think Alex
Well,
would
he's
do it. And I
debating
think
Jen Margot.
is that actually happening? I
That's
don't know
not
if that's
confirmed.
happening.
Yeah.
They're in talks. It's again. So I'm a good friend of Jen, of Margot, and they're in talks. Again, it comes down to the language. Alex wants to talk about crazies, and Jen wants to have a realistic discussion about what we actually do about it.
Yeah.
And they want to have two at Bitcoin 22. Yeah,
But no, Pacific Bitcoin.
at Pacific Bitcoin.
Yeah. I've offered it again to chair that one. I think I'm rejected sometimes because people think I'm not impartial enough, which is a fair point because in the Bitcoin world, I'm not. I'm seen as a lefty moron.
Yeah, but you're as a moderator. I mean, okay. Look,
I'm
there's one
experienced.
thing. There's one thing about if the debates in 2016 were held by the Clinton Foundation or at Mar-a-Lago. That's one. Having it hosted by CNN and Fox, they can be, independent. As a moderator, your job is to be a fucking independent, to be neutral. You don't have to have your bias doesn't come into that.
Yeah, but it does sometimes. Like I tried to host a debate between Peter Schiff and Greg Foss, and it ended up being me and Greg Foss against Schiff. So but that's the experience. You learn from these things. But we should put out a tweet saying that Nate Harmon is willing to debate anyone with regards to climate change. We'll get the wording afterwards. I'll tweet it out. Let's just get the wording right.
Well, climate change, as long as it's capital. Again, he used undercase climate, undercase crisis. Climate change, capital C, is a well-defined term that I will debate anyone on anytime.
Yeah, but it like I say, that might not be the debate we want to have.
That's
Once this is done, we'll sit down, we'll write the tweet, we'll get it out there, and I will happily host it. I'll fly anywhere, fly anyone in, I'll cover the cost. We'll make it happen because I think it should happen.
It should.
Like I say, the reason I had Alex Epstein on, who's someone I was really skeptical about, is because I want to talk to the people I'm skeptical about, as well as the people I agree with, which is why I have libertarians on, people from the left, the right, everyone. Like, I'll talk to anyone.
Me and my partner have, Michael, very different opinions on politics. I get both of my business partners have diametrically opposed, but I can get along with fucking anybody.
We will try and arrange that. Couple of things. Firstly, to anyone listening to this, because I'll tell you what's going to happen is it's going to go up on YouTube. And when it goes up on YouTube, there's going to be by the way, I don't read the comments anymore. But the comments, I know what's going to happen. There's going to be a lot of people who are going to insult you, insult me, disagree with us, parrot something, just like say we're
well, then they're disagreeing with abundant energy for everyone, which is what they claim to want.
Okay,
OTEC is that.
But what would you say to anyone who is super skeptical of you and everything you said, who thinks Alex Epstein is, or other, what would you say to those people?
I want abundant energy for everyone. Society does not work without abundant energy. We have two different viable paths to do so. Mine is a little harder, but I think the benefits of OTEC outweigh the drawbacks of fossil fuels. I think this is a better world for a world with OTEC is a better world for everyone. And that's it. I mean, I want abundant energy. There are 1 billion people living in the OTEC region that has OTEC available to them today. 1 billion human beings. And my only goal is to make sure that they can experience the same industrialization that we in the developed world have gone through. You cannot do. Fossil fuels has had 100 fucking years to bring these people energy, and they have failed. Fossil fuels have failed at every occasion to bring the developing world into the industrialized world. OTEC can do that.
All right, man. Well, listen. If people want to find out more, by the way, we're gonna do this again. If people want to find out more, where do they find out more?
You can follow me at Nate Hawaii or Michael at Michael Hawaii. Really easy. OceanBitEnergy.com.
All right, man. Well, listen, this was a fantastic conversation. I feel like this is the springboard for some other things. I massively appreciate you. I'm really glad we met in Hawaii. I consider you a friend, and anything I can do, let me know. And
We're not friends for the debate. Me and Peter don't know each other.
Yeah. But like all the best with this. Keep going. I'm going to get myself some of this seabed
manganese
nodules.
Manganese nodules.
All right, man. All right. Good luck. Keep crushing, Michael.
Aloha.
Aloha.